Protected. Wide open is high and running free. A total bust and a quick strike for the Volunteers.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Quickly get on the ball. Quick snap to Stroud. Hands Travion Henderson. Busting it straight ahead to the Penn State 30. Left side to the 20. Henderson to the 10 and into the end zone goes Travion Henderson on a 41-yard touchdown run.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
29 touchdown passes last year. This one's knocked up. Bowers tips it to himself, and he'll score. Touchdown, Georgia.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Second and 10, down to 4:15 to go. And the pass is intercepted. Picked off by Ron Moore. His third career interception, all of them this season, to lead the Wolverines.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Next closest was 31, and wide receiver 1 right now looks to be banged up.
Duggan, he's going to look for the long ball, drops it in behind the defense to Tay Barber. House call, touchdown. Just when you thought the Horned Frogs would be in trouble without Johnston, Tay Barber goes 71 yards.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Life is fun, isn't it?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we had a little accident here before the show. Everybody was taking care of the old man. Thank you very much. There's things on my screen I've never seen before. Good afternoon, 365 Sports. Here's a tweet to start the show. Craig just brought this up. Joseph Duarte covers the University of Houston. Sources telling him that Houston to open its first year in Big 12 football with home games against TCU and Texas. Now, the question is, where will that game be? It must be on campus at Houston.
Oh,
correct?
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, look, they just, they've got a fairly new stadium there at Houston. I would not let Texas talk you into let's go to Reliant. That's just asking for trouble. And look, there's going to be plenty of Longhorn fans there at that game anyway. But yeah, you got to cash that at home. Don't let the Longhorns con you into playing that at Reliant.
Yeah, I can't get through the paywall. I don't have a Houston Chronicle sub, so I don't know what the details of it are. I can't imagine that it's at Reliant Stadium. I mean, what would be the point or the fun in that other than just basically giving into it being a better, more neutral crowd for Texas, and even being at, at TDECU, that could still very well be a pro-Texas crowd and might be when all is said and done. But this was one of the matchups that I was hoping for with the new Big 12 to happen. Some of the others, are a bit more far stretched as far as like a real rivalry. Like Baylor and BYU's budding. UCF doesn't really have a solid opponent or solid rival. Cincinnati, same thing, trying to create some. But Houston, Texas is an easy sell. I mean, if you're talking about marketing a game now nationally, I don't know how well it plays, but I think you could probably build it up enough to where it becomes quite interesting. Just the fact that they haven't played in a long time, definitely not in Houston, and all that kind of stuff. So whenever that Big 12 full schedule comes out, it's going to be really interesting to see where, everybody falls and who gets what these last, couple of seasons. But I think, if you were doing like must-have games while you have the opportunity to do it and and I don't think it's really sticking it to UT because, maybe they'll feel like they're lowering themselves somewhat, but outside of that, like they're going to probably have the bigger crowd, like I said at the beginning, when all is said and done, very well could. So I think it'll be cool, man. That's one of those games that I wanted to see. I already had somebody go, Houston can't fill their stadium. They will for Texas. Like, please. Like, Big 12 game against Texas at home, please. They will fill that stadium, no problem.
They're a great draw. They're a great draw on TV. They're a great draw wherever you are if you're home game. And remember what back in the day when Mac Brown said about playing in Waco, he loved it because it gave some of his fans a chance to watch him play in person because back then I guess that the DK Royal Memorial Stadium was so packed and they couldn't get to it. And he kind of was taking a shot when he said that in a way, but also for his fan base. So that's his story. Mac Rhodes will join us today at 4:20. We'll have Nebias Wilborn, who writes for AL.com, Alabama site, but he covers Auburn, on the firing of Brian Harsin, which came down, of course, yesterday, and really some behind the scenes on the roller coaster of when he was in and out and in, and then all of a sudden boosters kind of liked what he was doing, and then all of a sudden something he said actually at SEC Media Days might have sent it over the edge again, and of course also not winning has a lot to do with that. Mac Rhodes, Craig's Off the Radar, JJ Joe, Baylor Radio, and former Baylor quarterback at 5, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. Astros and the World Series, which Craig will have notes about, his thoughts about that, Game 3 coming up, and also Paul's top 5. In the studio, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. You've seen the note again about Houston being able to have Texas at home along with TCU as a part of their opening year, not back, but in the Big 12 as we move forward. And that it's November. And so with that being said, Bob Berta, when he joined us a couple weeks ago, said that they would release the schedule as normal sometime in November, and so that's just a matter of time. So we'll get into that as well. The chat room's going. Thank you very much. Good to see everybody there. And also the text line is also available on top of that. Let's get to some other stories. Hendon Hooker, not a surprise right now, is the favorite as of right now to win the Heisman Trophy. Of course, he can really validate that even more. Maybe not need to, but against Georgia this weekend in the game in Athens, right now he's ahead of C.J. Stroud. And third is Michigan running back Blake Corum. And fourth right now among the odds is USC quarterback Caleb Williams. No Bryce Young. No, there's a couple other names.
Where's Drake May at?
Greg May, I don't see him on this list. This is just the top 5 or so. But that's not a surprise.
Where's Drake May at in the top 5?
Yeah. You think, okay, Drake May ahead of Hooker.
No, I'm not saying
Stroud,
ahead of Hooker, but
Corum, Williams. I didn't even know. I don't even see Bryce Young on here either. So, yeah, he's having a great year, though. No question. He is having a great year. So there's that. Okay, who would you say right now, other than the names I mentioned, who would you take out? Who would you, if you bring somebody in, who would you take out? Hooker, Stroud, Corum, and Caleb Williams. Those are just 4 names that are mentioned here by Caesar Sportsbook.
I would take out Caleb Williams and put in Drake May. Caleb Williams has been good, but I haven't seen him do anything this year that would be what I thought like at the end of last year where he was getting close to Heisman worthy in a short amount of time. But yeah, no, I think Drake May has surpassed, especially in the way he's individually, achieving things stat-wise and winning games for North Carolina. I think that he needs to be there with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think he definitely deserves to be in the discussion. I don't know who exactly I would take out. If as far as this question, yeah, I'd put him above Caleb Williams. Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that you just shove Caleb Williams off a cliff. I think he deserves some love too. But Chase Brown. I think there's a number of guys that you could probably sort through, but Hendon Hooker is probably, the easy odds-on favorite now at this point, I would think. I mean, it's going to be hard to overcome for anybody, just the hype train, the unstoppable momentum. It almost feels like, even though it's very stoppable, it could get stopped this weekend, but what feels like unstoppable momentum that Tennessee has right now, they just seem like the team of the year, destiny type of, story. If they get past this weekend, which a lot of people seem to think that they will, then my gosh, I don't even know what that's going to look like as far as, Tennessee talk goes. But yeah, that's understandable. Hendon Hooker being right there at the top, and those other names you mentioned deserving as well. But yeah, I'm throwing out Drake May because I think he deserves some love. And did you mention Chase Brown? Was he on there?
No, but I saw him. I saw him live, not live in person, but I saw he is. I'm trying to think who it reminds me of. The young man from Illinois. He is a fantastic running back. He can do it all.
Yeah, and you can't have 17 finalists or anything like that. I mean, that's not what this is anyways. It's just odds. But, those are just guys that deserve some love too. So, it's interesting to kind of see where it's at for the time being.
All right, so tonight, the release of the college football's first grouping of their college football playoff standings. If you want, and you want to give us your 1, 2, 3, and 4, do that. We'd love to have that on both the text line, 254-339-1122. I'm about to send a link to the tweet that I just put up asking for that on Twitter at David Smoak, and also I'll put that in the chat room. 1 through 4, who do you think should be ranked as of now, as of who they are today? And then I want you to do this if you can, and both Paul and Craig can also add to this. What will be tonight's mantra? What will be tonight's narrative about how they ranked whoever it is, even if it maybe makes sense across the board and you agree with it? What will be tonight's message?
Well, tonight, I think, is really the top 4 is somewhat obvious. It's going to be in some order Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan. And 2 of those teams play each other on Saturday, and then the 2 others play in 3 weeks. So that's going to get decided, but the top 4 shouldn't shock anybody. And I think the bigger question will be, does TCU, who's one of the few, 6 undefeated teams left in the country, where do they sit in? I would think that they'll probably be 5 would be Clemson, and TCU would either be 6th or 7th, with Alabama being in the spot that they're not.
I think I'm looking to see who's number 1. Because I think it'll be Tennessee. And, that sets up Georgia right now is number 1 in both polls. But I think, Tennessee could very well be the number 1 team in the playoff. First, release tonight. And, that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, really, it's about, okay, just out of interest, like, okay, do they put Tennessee number 1 heading into this game? And if they do, like, there's a great argument for that. But then, yes, it's where is TCU? Because they're really the Big 12's only shot at a playoff team. And, where are they kind of positioned? And then it's what are these narratives that they all set up ahead of time now, which is kind of what you're asking, but I don't know what that's going to be because I don't know. I don't know this committee. I don't know how they do things. I don't know if they like game control like Jeff Long and that group of idiots a few years back. They were just throwing out terms that were convenient to use when they needed to. Head-to-head matters 2 weeks later. Well, I know they won the head-to-head, but it was, and it was that whole song and dance that was just total BS that first go-around of the playoff. So I don't know what this particular committee is gonna be like in that regard starting tonight. But the narratives that they set up in terms of how they position, because we know how it goes, they set up chess moves along the way, and you can kind of see by the way that they set it up, kind of where they're leaning. So how is the chessboard set up for starters, as far as where certain teams are positioned and knowing what's coming ahead, coming down the rest of this month? How could you see a team potentially go from, outside looking in to very easily, swooping in, or how could a team kind of be protected within that top tier? I'm curious to see that, and curious, like, we know they'll love Tennessee. We know they'll love Georgia. We know they'll love Alabama. They just all happen to be in the same conference. We know they'll love Ohio State. We know they'll probably love Michigan. But, like, what do they think about TCU? What do they know about TCU or teams like that? What do they know about Oregon? What do they know about some of those teams that are, one loss in that vicinity? I'm curious about all those things. It's not going to answer everything, but it's going to give us an idea of sort of the starting point.
Okay, we're going to have the first 40 minutes of this show. We're going to have discussion. So there's a lot on the line. The Heisman, what I mentioned about Caesars Sportsbook, the college football release tonight, a lot of you on the chat room and also the text line. We will try to read as many of those as we possibly can. And then, of course, our first guest on the Auburn firing of Brian of Harsin, and also some stories behind the scenes.
And I didn't mention Clemson.
Yeah. So, I have a question. Okay, how do you view TCU versus Clemson?
Yeah.
Does Clemson have enough good wins to where their wins are slightly better than TCU's good wins right now? Because the ACC and the Big 12, at best, if you're the rosiest forecaster of the ACC look about the same, and that there's some teams that are all kind of close together. There's tough games and all that. But has Clemson looked better in their 7 games or 8 games than TCU has looked in their games? I don't know about that. I think that would be interesting to hear the committee's view. And does Clemson get ahead of TCU because Clemson is Clemson and TCU is TCU? Is that why they're really doing it? And the other thing is, what do you say about Oregon, who since they got woodshedded by Georgia has been a juggernaut? How much do they judge that Georgia game and say, well, that game was just such distance, we need to make sure that they're ninth because that loss was so bad?
They do deserve more than what they were 5-6 weeks ago.
Yes.
They do. But it's only if they want that to look good for a reason about where they put somebody. And that's one of the things where you don't trust what's going on. It's not a conspiracy theory, although some in the chat room think that way. But if they want to put Oregon higher, then that will be brought up. They're a different team. Well, that's obvious they are. If they want to keep them down in the 8, 9, 10, 11, then they'll bring up the loss to Georgia and how they were smoked in the opening week.
But here's the thing, though. That's what I'm talking about with positioning. Oregon's not going to be just used as Oregon and getting punished. They're going to be used as a tool for Georgia.
For Georgia, because,
they'll be Georgia defeated number 9 Oregon, blah, 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 that whole thing. And this is why they're above Alabama and Tennessee, or, whatever they want to position that as. And, of course, they'll be ahead of Alabama because they're unbeaten. But it's just, you know what I'm saying. That's going to be used, and it's rightfully so. Like, that should be a great resume piece for Georgia. Absolutely should be. But, yeah, how is Oregon utilized in that way? Not that you really probably at this stage need to really use them, but like down the line you could. If you're trying to separate Georgia versus, if they lose this weekend and then it's them and some other one-loss teams, that could be a separator. Was that big win against Oregon and where the Ducks are positioned by the end of the year and how that relates to whoever they might be going up against, like a one-loss TCU or a one-loss who maybe a Clemson, maybe I don't know, whoever that might be that they would be competing with, maybe a USC, for example. Although they'll have to have some separation there at some point as well. But yeah, I'm looking to see how the table's set and kind of see what the early narratives are, and then we can sort of go from there tomorrow and kind of see how the plans were laid. But
there is not a controversial decision to be made yet.
No.
Where they would have to be like, well, it's the Framington Index.
Head to head doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, we really looked at third quarter field goals, and it's, all the whatever.
Time zone issues.
Let's not forget about controlling the game.
Yeah, game control, stuff like that.
Or how maybe their suits, how sparkly their suits are. And again, some of that is tongue-in-cheek. Here are some of your responses on the chat room, and some of you saying hi today, and thanks a lot. Some of you asked about where Max Duggan might be in the conversation. He keeps winning. TCU keeps winning. He keeps putting up those numbers. Then Max Duggan's going to be a part of that conversation. Some are saying he has no chance because of the fact that it's TCU and it's not maybe Georgia or Ohio State or whoever. And maybe that's why right now May is not in the conversation yet at North Carolina.
Well, I mean, North Carolina's 7-1 primarily because of him, and you could argue that they're a bit too low, but I mean that's understandable. I think though that Drake May definitely deserves some love when it comes to that conversation. Not saying he should be the winner by any means or anything like that, but just if we're talking like odds and favorites and those types of things, he should be mentioned, and so should Max Duggan. Absolutely, he is a big part of the reason why TCU is having the run that they're having to start this year. I mean, I will say that, it's not just him, though. I mean, he's playing really well, but he's got some pretty dang good, weapons around him as well. I don't know if that takes away because most people are more apt to bring up Quentin Johnston before they are Max Duggan. I don't know if that hurts him. I don't know if it hurts that most people don't know who Kendry Miller is or Darius Davis or, any other number of guys. I mean, we all do. We watch them. But I don't think the same people are watching that game as intently as they are watching Hendon Hooker in Tennessee or some of the other, odds-on favorites. So I do think that hurts, just not having the same amount of exposure or attention or care on the part of the voters. And so, yeah, that's going to hurt him. But it's like, man, my solution to everything in college football is really simple. It's the solution to everything, pretty much. You can't get out of NCAA penalties by just doing this, or lack of booster. Well, actually, this solves that too. Just win. That's all you got to do. If Max Duggan's sitting there undefeated at the end of the year, we'll hear about Max Duggan, probably getting a spot in New York. But he is flying a little too under the radar for my taste.
He's a lot more known now than he was perhaps. And we covered the conference, so we knew Max even a couple of years ago, sometimes sporadic, but also knew that he could at times ball out. From on the Twitter handle, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, the top four. Clemson hasn't played well throughout, even though undefeated. Same with Michigan. Alabama's not who they have been the past couple of years, or even the last 12 years, somewhat inconsistent. TCU has beaten 3 or 4 ranked teams, deserves a nod, as much as I hate to say it. And that's from a Baylor fan. Now,
there's not even a comparison in the resume with TCU and Michigan. TCU's got 4 straight top 25 wins. Michigan's got 1. Now, again, this is the first ranking, so they go beat Ohio State. None of that matters. But as of right now, TCU definitely has a better resume than Michigan. I think they have 1 more top 25 win than Clemson. So, I think there's an argument for them. And if they're not there, then that would be one of those narratives that's kind of said of like, why is Michigan with a clearly lesser schedule ahead of TCU with an unbeaten and clearly superior schedule? And that's something that they will have to explain, and that's how they'll set this table, and that's what we'll learn tonight.
Real quick, from Joe Frog 91, I just want Max to win the Davey O'Brien Award. After all, that's named after a TCU quarterback. In TCU, I don't know if they've ever had a Davey O'Brien winner. Even Boykin, who had the great year. Boykin had the great year. I don't think he won it that year.
If you put the Wonder Woman's lasso of truth on the spokesperson tonight and said, why is Michigan, just tell me why Michigan is better than TCU, and he would say, well, Michigan. That's why. I mean, that's the difference. Like, based on what
be honest.
But what you just said, Craig, is TCU 4 straight top 25 wins. Now, is it Michigan's fault that the other programs in their conference aren't that? No, it's not. But when you're talking about like who's had the most impressive wins, who's had to fight through some wins because they're playing better teams, it's been TCU. So if it's about beating good teams, TCU's beaten more good teams than Michigan.
They did beat the hell out of Penn State. Michigan.
No, they did. That's their one top 25 win.
But if you're talking about in the column,
because if the stories were flipped, we know the answers to that.
It's not even a
doubt.
If
TCU was Oklahoma or Texas, there would be. It's true, and we understand it. We get it. We understand it. They would be much more in the conversation if they had a different name on that 7-0 resume.
If you gave Michigan TCU's schedule, there would not even be a conversation. It would not even be a thought to start the conversation. But the other way, you have to at least say, like, well, you have to assume that, TCU will probably, despite that, be behind Michigan because that's how college football works. And not even sitting up here with sour grapes or anything. Like, tonight, if they have TCU ahead of Michigan, for example, then I'll salute them and say, yay. All that really matters, though, is by the end, if that holds true that they're ahead of Michigan. But at that point, Michigan would have a win over Ohio State, have a Big Ten championship, so it'd be a different combo at that point. But, right now, the resumes are clearly favored in one direction. I don't know if TCU is better than Michigan overall, but I do know what I've seen from them this year, and I'd have no problem seeing them in that top 4. So, tonight's not the end-all, be-all. We don't need to treat it like it's going to be the death of TCU football if they're at, like, number 6 tonight. Or name a team, not even a Big 12. If Michigan's not in the top 4, that's not a death knell by any means. Again, it's setting the table. It's finding out what the early narratives are going to be and kind of see where they're positioning the chess pieces and getting an idea of kind of where they might maneuver in the next couple of weeks as this thing gets down to the end line, because that's how it goes.
All right. Let's take a break so we can come back with more on this. Also, we need to get to the chat room. We need to read some of yours. In fact, and some of you bring up where a team was ranked when someone played them, and where are they now? Like if you played A&M early in the year, and that counts as a top 10 win, what is it should count for now? Or maybe Notre Dame, or maybe Baylor. We'll come back with that and more. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com, pizza lovers. Get it right now. Online, you can go and get the Pepperoni Magnifico. PepMag3 is the code. Order now and get $3 off. Wherever you have a Marco's Pizza where you want to get it delivered to you, well, they'll do that. And also, you can go pick it up. 5 locations around Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Hewitt, Woodway, and Robinson. Large one-topping pizzas, $8.99 each. You can use the code 899 to go. $3 off large specialty pizzas. Use the code SPECIAL3. Marcos.com has all of this. They have the cauliflower crust, delicious pizza bowls. You can order that online right now and get those. Download on their app and then get 25% off your first menu price order. Pizza is just a tap away. Marcos Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, some of those comments from you on the text line. Bob Kramer was, do they ever explain the reasons for the way the teams are ranked? Yes, that's kind of what we were talking about if you haven't followed it. That's why I have not watched much of the college football releases the last several years, because they're going to fit however they have it, and sometimes it may make sense to them or they want you to think that makes sense, but a lot of times it's like, what? After the week before, it was maybe road wins against ranked teams, and then
Jeff
it's
Long was the worst.
Quality wins, and then it's it's a rivalry game, and yet it's not a rivalry in the head-to-head mattered, and then it doesn't.
But we talked about this last week. I don't know how they select the poor sap that has to do that, because he is the mouthpiece, or whoever it's going to be each year, they're the mouthpiece for that group. So they have to go explain why the group did what they did, when the simplest explanation is well, we did what we thought. This is what we think. We're the people charged with this. These are the 4 best teams, and that's it.
The first year was like a reality show.
Yeah. Well, and it still kind of is. It's just the curtains has been pulled back. And after the first year, when we were all watching it and kind of like, okay, we're in it, and then at the end and they change, we're like, well, then what did week 1 matter? Why did I watch this? It would be watching The Bachelor, but then a different girl is picking the guys after all the ones at the end. It didn't make any sense. So, all right, they just need to throw it out. I mean, my opinion is don't do the playoff show at all until there's actually a playoff to pick.
Well, I like the fact that they've waited until at least 7, 8, 9 weeks into it. Let me ask you this. Look at Ohio State. We know they're pretty good. They beat Penn State 44-31. And that was on the road. They were ranked 13th at the time, Penn State. Michigan beat them 41-17. Ohio State opened the year against 5th-ranked Notre Dame, 21-10. Should that count now when they release the standings this week that there was 5th-ranked Notre Dame?
No.
Because other than that, what's their schedule like or better resume than what Michigan has?
Well, the thing is that the problem with doing that is that they will cherry pick when teams had top 10 wins.
There you go.
And it's
There you
different.
go.
So instead of cherry picking it, you have to throw it out. It's a team, doesn't matter what a team was ranked when they played. The team is as good as the whole body of work. Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you
an
are.
argument against that, or at least looking at what about if somebody was really, really good and their quarterback suffered an injury and they've been in a free fall since then?
Well, it depends on who was on the other side of it, because I've seen them not bring that up at all when it's been in play, and I've seen that bring it up when it was useful to do so. I can't cite the exact reason. It happened the last couple years where I very clearly was watching, and they didn't cite it for one team and they cited it for another that they were trying to push forward. So, I mean, what about it? Like, yeah, it should matter. I think if you beat Ohio State, but they didn't have C.J. Stroud or like even a couple other players, then yeah, that's more notable. But if you're going to do that, you have to do it across the board. And I just don't think that they watch enough or have enough time to watch enough to really be able to know some of these details. And
I've been told they've watched dozens of hours.
But how much do you,
that, and it's total BS.
But it's,
I mean,
but also you could.
But if you're only in that room for the weekend, why we watch 6 or 8 hours of football? Why aren't they?
What's the retention?
Exactly.
So I'll just ask you, Captain ADHD. You're really good about a lot of this stuff, but your retention from moment to moment is
not good.
It's like this. So I don't know about those people on the committee and what their retention is. Not everybody can have Dave Campbell like memory recourse up into their mid 90s, but there are different things, and that's why I think that you have to go by the mantra, because everybody plays against teams with injuries. Everybody has injuries. It works out. You can take special consideration for that, but if you're not able to do it across the board, then you have to go by the mantra of you are what your record says you are. So if Notre Dame was number 5 in the country before they'd even played a game, and now they're 5-5, well, guess what? They're 5-5, and guess at the beginning of the season they were a 5-5 team waiting to come out of the 5-5 cocoon. So that's what you have to do is in the moment. What are they?
Yeah. All right. So again, that comes out
TCU
tonight.
doing that would still have 2 top 25 wins, and that's still more than Michigan. So I mean, that still doesn't change my argument. So they wouldn't have 4; they'd have 2 because now Texas and somebody who else dropped out? I think Oklahoma maybe was ranked at the time that TCU beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that perhaps was what it was, but they still got 2 anyways. And quite frankly, like, I mean, we can analyze like how they do it and all. It's the first freaking one. Like, it's not that big a deal. I mean, it's a big deal just again to see the map layout. But I mean, it's the first show. There's going to be 5 more of these.
Too many more, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Well, you just got done saying that you like them waiting till now.
No, what I'm saying is I like them waiting until now. It just seems like I'm watching a soap opera. I'll pay attention because TCU's in the mix.
Well, that's my point. Is like, again, that's what I just said a second ago. Is this is the first one. So I mean, you can get all hot and bothered about like where so and so is tonight, but ultimately let's let this thing breathe a little bit and see after this weekend where everybody is, and then revisit it, and we'll see after the next weekend where everybody is. And then by the end of this month, we'll know exactly where everybody is, and we'll be able to argue about the real, final couple sets of rankings that are actually going to determine this thing. But, the ones tonight, they're not totally worthless, but they can change quickly, and they can kind of set up a wall to sort of protect what their, ultimate motivations are. We've seen them do that before. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of separate, at least tonight. I think that clump of 6 or 7 schools, although, 3 or 4 of the top 4 are going to be pretty easy and obvious.
All right, some of you on the chat room on the college football playoff, JR, then are you saying the same thing about Alabama, who is number 6 with a loss? I think you may be talking to those in the chat room and not us. We brought up Alabama probably in that 5 to 8 range. I would say more. They probably, with the release of the standings, more 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see here. Why are you mentioning Michigan? At least say why. Is Alabama ranked above TCU? We don't know if they'll be ranked above TCU, and I'm not so sure they will be. I really don't. They have the 1 point or whatever win against Texas. That's a non-top 25, no matter how much of an amazing 10 million plus watched it and 2 logos. And then we know about some of the other of what they've dealt with. Alabama just hasn't looked sharp consistently this year, but they might get that thing rolling, and then we'll see what happens. They also have that dramatic loss to Tennessee on their resume too.
Yeah, they do. And unlike 6 other teams ahead of them, they do have a loss on their resume, even if it is to Tennessee and even if they're the number 1 team in the country tonight. So, there's 6 unbeatens that are right there with them. And they're ahead of TCU. The only one they're ahead of. The only one they're ahead of is TCU in the polls. So the other unbeatens are all good enough. And so I bring up TCU because I was just thinking about a team that hasn't played on paper as good. If you're talking about top 25 rankings, Michigan comes to mind because it's very well known that Michigan's schedule has been relatively weak. Does that mean the Wolverines are a weak team? Absolutely not. But their schedule is, and there's not really much of a debate about that. Now, it might look different by the end of the year, but we're just using them as an example compared to TCU, who has, depending on how you want to count it, either 4 or 2 top 25 wins. So that's better than Michigan. I believe that'd also be better than Clemson if we want to do that as well. Although I'd have to go look back at Clemson's 3, I think that they have, and see if all those would still count. But I mean, it's just using it as an example. You could go team by team, but we really don't have the time nor the patience nor really the want to do that. It's not singling out Michigan. It's just an easy comparison to make when you're talking schedules compared to TCU and who the Frogs actually would have an advantage over based on that one metric.
All right, we have a guest coming up, and he is a writer for AL.com. He wrote an article about the behind-the-scenes stories with Brian Harston, and even more so, some stories that I didn't know about, and that maybe the crack in the dam might have been what he said at the SEC Media Days. We'll get to that. Nolan Smith, Georgia linebacker, out for the year, torn pec. C.J. Donaldson, running back, West Virginia, out for the year. Syracuse, Garrett Williams, defensive back, out for the year with a torn ACL. Also today, the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award National Player of the Week, K-State running back Deuce Vaughn, who was a finalist last year for his performance in the rout of Oklahoma State. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Stonewood Dental, in fact, I got an email earlier today from my good friend, Dr. Steve Childress, who is the one who has given me the light, so to speak, tunnel vision on getting dental work where it needs to be after on and off being erratic with what I did. Not that I didn't do the bare necessities or the fundamentals of dental work, but there's some things I could have done better. He's the one now that with his hygienist with the getting a teeth cleaning, and it's not just, okay, maybe it's time. Wait a minute, I don't remember. You go and get a teeth cleaning, they line you up for the next one. Maybe they do that elsewhere, but I know that was nice, and they stay on top of me even 2 or 3 days prior to the event, constantly reminded me, hey, in 3 days or tomorrow or today. Stonewood Dental, the staff is fantastic. It's a tremendous place. If you've never been there and you're looking for a new dentist or need one, Stonewood Dental with Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We will hear from Tobias Wilburn in just a moment from AL.com. He covers Auburn. And he wrote a story about the Brian Harsin, basically what all happened. We kind of knew some of that, a lot of it booster related. The boosters are, in fact, mentioned quite a bit in the article. Some of them went up and down the emotional roller coaster of support for Brian Harsin. And it might have been something at SEC Media Days that some who would back on his train, then all of a sudden, because of something he said, it kind of infuriated a few of them. But it's part of that deal, man. It's the toxicity of the boosters who run Auburn football. And I'm not saying there's not influence in other programs with the boosters and donors, but it does seem like Auburn. And by the way, one other thing, Bo Nix left, and he's having a monstrous year. Zach Calzada comes in. He's done nothing. I don't even know how much he's played. And so you that decision, that particular transaction obviously came back to hurt him as well.
I mean, yeah, it's boosters, but it's also they just weren't very good. And you're not very good, and you don't have a quarterback. Zach Calzada's not playing. He hasn't been a factor whatsoever. He also had T.J. Finley, and yet, here was the guy that you already had before those guys, and yeah, he's balling out of control in Eugene, Oregon right now. So that was salt in the wound. That was insult to injury. There's already a lot of people that weren't on board with the hire from the very beginning, so he's already off to a bad start. That only grew. And then you look at results, and then you look at, now tack on for extra insult the Bo Nix situation where he's doing what he's doing at the moment, and you're doing what you're doing at quarterback. And, yeah, that all adds up to a big ball of bad. But, it seems like it was a pretty rocky situation from the very beginning, and it never really got off those tracks and remained rocky until they finally decided to call it quits. And here we are.
Tobias Wilburn, he writes for the AL.com, again, has a great story today on the inside the end of Brian Harsin's Auburn tenure, and he joins us now on 365 Sports. Thanks for your time. Yeah, this was, no matter all of what you've written, and it's great, it's very much insightful. We'll get into a lot of that. What was, no matter what he did, unless he ran the table or they were 7-1 right now, was he a dead man walking?
It's difficult to say because it's more than just on-field wins that were issues. A lot of it was recruiting. I mean, you look at recruiting classes right now. You look at last year's recruiting class. So it's a combination of a lot of different issues. I would say his best bet would have been don't get beat by 29 against Penn State. Don't give up the 17-point lead against LSU. And don't get your doors blown off against UGA. And then maybe sign a 5-star or two. Then maybe we're in a different situation.
New Bias, what could he have done to make this season, outside of winning more games, seem like it's just a step in the process? Was it already too far gone when the season started?
Well, I mean, it's tough, right? Because once the inquiry happened in February, and again, listen, schools do inquiries all the time in programs. We all know this, okay? Because things happen. But this just got so public. And when it got so public, it really kneecapped Brian Harsin in a lot of different ways. And it created a level of distrust that was very difficult for him to come back from. He got a lot of complaints for not being as visible. But also, you got to remember, he got hired right during the pandemic. And that was still raging, or during the quarantine portion of the pandemic, because, pandemic still kind of happening. But anyway, during the quarantine portion, so a lot of that was he couldn't go out. He couldn't do things. Then when he could, by then it was already a little bit too late for some people. But once the February inquiry happened, it created a really dangerous split where people just refused to come around on him. And even though he was doing the things, they felt as though it was a little bit too late. And this goes back to February all the way up till now. So it became one of those things like, hey, we don't like you. We decided we don't like you. And anything we do reminds us why we don't like you.
Where does the quarterback situation with Nix doing what he's doing now and Eugene is as well publicized and Calzada clearly not doing what he was expected to be doing, and then you got TJ Finley in the mix as well, but where did that handling of the quarterback spot and then seeing kind of the salt in the wound with Bo Nix having success, where did that rank amongst the laundry list of issues for Auburn boosters or fans versus Brian Harsin?
Well, I mean, it's right up there, right? I mean, because it's also very visible. If you look at teams that have won a national championship and competed for one in the last, 25 years, other than maybe Stetson Bennett at UGA, show me a quarterback that's really done that and hadn't been like a near Heisman Trophy candidate, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to get to that level, you got to have a quarterback. And Auburn did not get the kind of quarterback play this year that would make them anybody's contender at anything. And that's just the reality. Calzada had the injuries. Ironically, suffered an injury against Auburn way before they knew it would be at Auburn, which kind of just one of those just twists of fate. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just is. And Finley just never really evolved into the type of player that they wanted him to be. So again, another unfortunate circumstance. And they have Robbie Ashford, who, oddly enough, played his best game against Arkansas, ran for nearly 100 yards, nearly had 300 yards passing, threw a couple touchdowns. looked like a good player who was developing, but it was just too little too late. And it's just unfortunate circumstances where I think Bo Nix realized he could never live up to the expectations of being at Auburn as far as like the fan expectations of living up to whatever his father was, all that kind of stuff. I think that led him to leave more than his alleged beef with head coach Brian Harsin. But unfortunately, all of it gets tacked on to Harsin as the transfers kept going, as the allegations kept coming, and as Auburn was continuing to perform well in recruiting. Oh, and then, by the way, losing the last 5 games of the season.
Tobias, share the story, if you don't mind, with our audience that you had with Derek Mason, who's now at Oklahoma State, former Vanderbilt head coach, and his conversation with Harsin.
Oh, gee golly. So basically, to kind of summarize this, from what I was told from several people who were familiar with the conversation, they were having a disagreement about who to hire at defensive line and defensive line coach and what they were going to do, right? And so it became a back and forth. And basically Mason allegedly said, hey, man, I've been coaching this league a lot longer than you have. To which Brian Harsin said, oh, you mean at Vanderbilt? Tell me more.
Damn.
That's
to the point.
Ice cold.
Yeah.
No, at Boise State.
And also Harsin is known. Man, one thing about Harsin, again, a lot of people didn't really get to know him just because of, when we first started covering him, the press conferences were on Zoom, and he's a much different person. Like most of us are different on Zoom than we are in person, particularly if we have a little bit of familiarity with you. He didn't really go out of his way to ingratiate himself to media. I had a decent relationship with him, but I'm probably one of the few on the beat who actually got some time with him away from the podium, so you really get to know him. He has a dry sense of humor, and also he doesn't take any mess. And the reality of it was he felt Mason was trying him, and he might have been. And so, he gave him a little clap back. I mean, this happens with coaches. These are conversations that happen, but also a very important thing here, when Mason left, he met with the team and told the team he was taking time off, for health issues because he had COVID and had some other things, taking time off for health issues. And 2 days later, they see him take a Oklahoma State job.
So let's say that I'm going to apply for the Auburn head coaching job, and I feel pretty confident in my credentials as a winning head coach at a different program. But what do I need to know walking in there that would make me feel confident in having enough room to make that my job and be successful before people got mad at me and the Brian Harsin thing started all over again?
Well, I mean, Jesus, where do you start, man? I mean, you look at, what, do you want to go back to Tommy Tuberville when he was the coach and they were trying to fly planes to go get, where do you want to go? When they were trying to do a coaching search while the coach was getting ready to coach at Iron Bowl, and from all people, Mr. Motorcycle Man up there in Arkansas. I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, how far into history do you want to go to realize that, hey, Auburn's boosters will get involved? Now, listen, they're not all bad. And honestly, Auburn's no worse than anywhere else. The people care. The problem with Auburn is everything just becomes so public. And a lot of it's because they make it public, i.e., the president unprompted. Because anybody asked him, hey, are you guys investigating the program? He volunteered the information. And yeah, we're going to write about it then. And so a lot of Auburn's things have been making things public. I will say with Dr. Roberts, there weren't really a whole lot of leaks when it came to the latest search, and it appears that they're trying to circle the wagons, maybe keep things a little bit more under caps and maybe get some of that mess out of there. But we'll see if athletic director Jeff Cohen, who's from Tuscaloosa, who's very familiar with the state, who's also very familiar with the SEC, let's see maybe he can do things different under Dr. Roberts as president. Maybe you can get some of that stuff quieted down. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, the big AD hire there, I mean, obviously that was the kickstart to go ahead and finally making the move with Harsin. I mean, you point out the close ties, the SEC knowledge and whatnot, but what have you kind of learned about John Cohen and I guess maybe sort of the expectations about how he'll attack this process once he gets his feet underneath him?
Well, from what I understand, and again, this is very relative here, that is going to be his choice. It's going to be his call, and he's going to do a thorough search. I'm sure, they use all these search firms and everything. I'm sure they'll use some of that, but it's going to be his call. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does, what his philosophy is on hiring coach. We haven't gotten much time with him. I think he just is getting in town today. So hopefully in that some days we'll actually get a little bit of time to sit down with him and see what his mindset is, and we'll learn more. But from what I've been told, he doesn't mind making tough decisions. He doesn't mind criticism, which is something you're going to need at Auburn. Because let me tell you something, you will get criticized.
Nubias, I asked you about the Derek Mason back and forth with Harsin. It's a crazy story, good story too. But in the end, boosters were on and off with him, and then donors, whatever. Is it true, though, that because of what he said at SEC Media Days that might have been the final nail in the coffin, or at least to start nailing the coffin?
For some people, yes, because they took it as arrogance. They took it as him not learning his lesson. And, some of those people also were the ones who kind of wanted to go. So now you're poking your nose at them again when you still need their money. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. It's just what happened. You know what I'm saying? And yes, there were people who maybe were coming around on him who felt like, okay, he wants to rub our noses in this. Okay, good luck with that.
Do you think that the Auburn faithful would embrace Deion Sanders if he was the guy?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, now, will you have a couple holdouts for those reasons that we don't even need to get into? Sure. But I do think people would support it because, I mean, look at what Deion's doing right now. I mean, he's getting top 5 players there. He is winning at that school at Jackson State, historical program in SWAC. And, yeah, people are going to get excited. Now, will Deion work? I don't know. Will Auburn hire him? I don't know. I do know that there is a contingency of Auburn people, including some high-profile boosters who might surprise you a little bit that are interested in Deion because of what they feel he could do as a recruiter.
How ready are they to unload when it comes to the NIL part? I mean, we know, Nubias, this is how it all works these days, and you can flip a roster real quick. I mean, they had 17 quarterbacks, and now it's basically Robbie Ashford or bust, and they can go and change that overnight. In the transfer portal era. Once the window's open, but how there's a lot of money flowing around. I mean, the buyout, the new coach, and new staff, and all that. Where are they, and where are they positioned as far as the NIL game goes in your mind?
Well, I guess I'm gonna give away a story here. I'm working on, but apparently there's somewhere between $10 to $13 million in a pot right now with the new collective, the On to Victory collective. So. Look for a story from me in the next couple of days about that as I get to know more information. But, apparently the money is there. It's just getting it to the right places, getting people in charge of it. There's some new people in charge of this collective, so they're going to have money. But yeah, also, too, you are right. You're spending a lot of money. And keep in mind, they still got a facility that's finishing up that, unfortunately, Brian Harsin won't ever get to use. But the facility's finishing up. And here's the other thing. They still got to pay all these buyouts, but Auburn got some money. It's just whether or not they can convince players, and they're going to need to flip the roster because guess what? You don't have your offensive linemen coming back. Most of your offensive line from this year, off a line that, well, you can't really say was very good, or at least has performed well up to this point. They're all leaving. So, yeah, you're going to have to go in that portal and get a starting offensive line and possibly a quarterback if you don't feel Ashford or Grenier is the guy going forward. I can't assume that Zach Calzada is coming back or TJ Finley. So, yeah, it's a lot of flipping will have to happen.
How have you felt about what you've seen from Ashford?
Oh, I mean, listen, I think he is a dynamic talent. He has the speed and capability to be a very talented football player, to be the kind of quarterback that could lead a team to wins. He's also got to hold on to the ball back.
Yeah.
That's been a struggle for him. He has not held on to the ball this year. He has fumbled it, thrown it away, and that's something Auburn can't afford. So he's got to tighten that up. If he can tighten that up, hey, man, you're talking about a really talented player who has the athletic ability to be a Heisman Trophy type candidate if he hones it in.
Tobias, great stuff. Great story today on AL.com with what you do with Auburn. We appreciate it. We're going to save your number. You probably need to block ours. We'll be back in touch with you because this was a great segment. Thanks for your time.
Hey, gentlemen, thank y'all so much for having me.
Yeah, you too. Now get rid of that cough. Yeah. Tobias Wilborn, yes, AL.com, with a hell of a story if you haven't read it. I read it earlier this afternoon, and it's what you think from what Paul asked about donors and boosters to what Craig was asking about as far as winning or not, and then also some of the drama behind the scenes just with Brian Harsin.
You know what A&M says about themselves? Well, at least we're not Auburn. You know, so.
Yeah,
they're very damn similar.
Although, I don't know, I think they might wish that they could just fire their coach and pay the buyout without having to, you know, basically sell off an entire county of, you know, of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mess all around. I mean, there is the Brian Harsin just wasn't a fit from the very beginning crowd that can easily raise their hands in victory, because there was definitely a number of people who called that from the very get-go, that he just culturally wasn't going to be the best fit ultimately, just not enough of a recruiter. And, you know, as Tobias mentioned and has been well publicized, yeah, he was not a great recruiter. That might have been the most damning thing of all, quite frankly, like more so than the quarterback bad luck and how that sorted out to where you went from having a couple of transfers to, you know, Robbie Ashford's also a transfer. He's an Oregon guy at one point, but he was not expected to be playing over TJ Finley and Zach Calzada this year, I don't suspect. So, you know, that didn't go right. That obviously just personality-wise, it wasn't a fit. And, you know, ultimately, I think, from the sounds of it, they got the money. I don't think that that's any surprise. But, you know, if you're not recruiting well and then you're not winning, then everything else is going to look worse. And so I think that, you know, the personality stuff, if he's winning and he's getting in, you know, a top 5 class, you can overcome some of the, he's not that good at this, or this isn't his strongest suit. But when you're, you know, there's certain things that aren't the most likable in the proper people's eyes, and then you add in, you're also not recruiting well, and you're losing games at a rapid pace. Then, I mean, what is there to you know?
There's nothing. And look, the biggest thing, if I'm hiring a coach in the SEC right now, or anywhere, but particularly in the SEC, where I have to go to head-to-head with the 2 best recruiters in the country, and now Brian Kelly, who clearly is pretty darn good at that, and Jimbo Fisher, who's getting dudes, then, I mean,
are you forgetting about Lane Kiffin?
And Lane Kiffin. So, but I need a tireless recruiter. I need somebody who loves it as much as Kirby Smart. And Florida erred in thinking that Dan Mullen's football acumen could overcome his distaste for the level of recruiting he was going to have to do. And I think Brian Harsin probably falls a little bit in that category of, I don't think he's forgot how to coach football, but you're in the SEC and the teams that you're playing, Georgia's their cross-conference rival, right? Auburn and Georgia, that's one of their cross-conference or cross-divisional rivals. That guy sits and thinks, how do I get kids in this room? Yeah. And you're going to have to do that, and so that's the guy they're going to have to hire. I don't know who that is, really. I've got a top 5 about it today, but again, can they go toe-to-toe with Kirby Smart in those guys?
All right, go ahead.
No.
We'll come back with your follow-up comments, Craig. Also, what would the college football playoffs, the quarterfinal round, look like today based on what we saw, at least from the AP and also coaches poll, plus a couple of other notes that we want to get to. Later in the show, a note about the Stanford tree mascot. That's kind of interesting. There's a couple of games tonight, Ball State at Kent State, Buffalo at Ohio. This is 365 Sports. Pickup Outfitters, Jay Errett, Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, a place that has accessories for your car, truck, and also for your SUV. That's what they are. That's what they do, and they do it incredibly well. One of the things about Jay Errett is he's kind of like not afraid to try something new. He's not afraid to sit there and go, you know what, I'm going to kind of push the envelope when it comes to his marketing with his TV commercials, and then I get to endorse him. Pickup Outfitters is 25 years old. Between now and Thanksgiving Day, here's what they're doing. Through now and Thanksgiving, Purchase one item, get the second item of equal or lesser value at 25% off. Bumpers, grill guards, whatever. Also, now through Thanksgiving, buy a bed cover, get a spray and liner for 25% off. Buy a grill guard, get running boards at 25% off. This works even if you have multiple vehicles. Buy a toolbox for one truck, get a toolbox for a second truck for 25% off. You get the picture. Also giving away $4,000 worth of prizes, including $1,000 in truck accessories, a 12,000-pound winch, also a set of FabTech Stealth shocks, a 12-volt fridge cooler, 1-month subscriptions to Netflix, and more. No purchase necessary. It's worth it. It's Pickup Outfitters in J. Arrett, CreateACommotion.com at 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
23 years old. Can he find some magic in that right arm that's maybe a little rusty? It's picked off. All the way back to the end zone. Touchdown, Baylor. A.J. McCarty with the 5th interception of the night for the Baylor defense.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Getting back to what we were discussing in the last segment, and really since we came on today, we mentioned early the latest odds in the Heisman Trophy with what Hendon Hooker is and where he is at the top, and then Corum along with C.J. Stroud and a couple of others. And we had a good discussion there. The College Football Playoff Committee releases their first standings of the year later on, early on, right after our show, in fact, this evening, and a lot of discussion about that, the segment about Auburn, and also Brian Harsin. We appreciate Mr. Wilburn for joining us on the show today. Craig, you want to continue what your thought was at the end of the last segment?
I don't even remember what we were talking
about.
about.
Auburn. Auburn. That's good. Now, bangers this week. There's nothing that compares, no matter what, to Georgia, Tennessee. Nothing. It's not like on a different universe, right? Number 1 against number 2 or 3, whatever it might be.
It's 1 and 2.
And then it could be 1 and 2. One poll is not, but it could be tonight when they release the standings, and that wouldn't surprise me in any way at all. Teams that moved up last week in the top 25, obviously Kansas State, Illinois, Oklahoma State, Wake Forest dropped. South Carolina, Cincinnati, gone. So Texas Tech down, obviously, out of the Big 12 numbers as far as if, in fact, they can, I don't know. I can't see it happening against TCU, but maybe getting into a crazy-ass shootout with TCU is what they need to get out of the funk that we saw from them on Saturday night. So who, in your opinion, is truly still alive as a not just mathematically, but you think still alive who can play for the Big 12 championship, that you think, based on what you see right now, can play for the Big 12 championship? How many teams?
5.
5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think again, and it's all about, this is a moving weekend too. This is like moving day at a golf tournament. This is that weekend with the first weekend in November, 4 games left for everybody. This is moving weekend. So this is TCU keeping pace, with what they're doing and not giving up a cheap one to a Texas Tech team that got rolled at home last week and hasn't won on the road yet this year. This is Kansas State to beat Texas, and that's going to be tough, but they are at home and show that you really are the team that did that to Oklahoma State. It's Oklahoma State wake up and get out of whatever that was last week and fight. And for Baylor, and I guess
that's it.
Yeah, and Texas too.
I don't think. I think Texas wins as of today. I think Texas wins this weekend. That's what I'm banking on. I might change that thought. I'm free to do whatever I want. Right? I can change that by Friday whenever we have to have our picks in. But right now, at this very moment, I was thoroughly impressed by what they did. But Texas is coming off of a bye week, and I just think that they're going to be refocused and chomping at the bit, and that would obviously throw things for a loop. But, yeah, I mean, TCU's in the driver's seat, and if Texas were to beat K-State in theory, then TCU's got a 2-game lead with 3 weeks to go. So they're going to be in. I mean, barring some epic collapse. Now, granted, they could lose to Baylor. They could lose to Texas. So, there's not a definite unbeaten season in TCU's, next 4 weeks, but they're sitting pretty. I mean, K-State's the only one that has, even within a game in the standings, and they've already, taken care of that. So, I think them two, Oklahoma State is hanging on by a thread, Baylor's hanging on by a thread, and Texas is hanging on by a thread. But, one of those teams is probably going to take loss number 3 this weekend, you would think. So that would, in theory, eliminate somebody else. And perhaps, if K-State does lose to Texas, and all of a sudden you got Texas at 3-2, K-State would be 3-2, and
4-2.
4-2. Excuse me. And Texas would be 4-2, and Texas would have the tiebreaker all of a sudden. So second place could flip real quick, just with one result this weekend. So I'd say those 5, because then after that it's like Oklahoma. I mean, in theory they could go on a run. I don't think they will, but I mean they could win this weekend. I definitely think that they could win this weekend. probably not going to pick them to, but they could. But at 3 losses, everybody's got 3 losses. They've got 3. KU's got 3, and they're running out of steam. Tech's got 3, and, they're not ready for that just yet. And then West Virginia and Iowa State, I mean, please, they've been out of this thing.
You know a stat defensively in the Big 12? Number 2, giving up most of the points, the teams giving up the fewest points this year in the Big 12 is Kansas State. Number 3 is Texas. Baylor's 4. And Iowa State is at 133. They've allowed 133 points in 8 games, and they're 0-5 in the conference, 3-5, and in serious jeopardy of not being a bowl team. But today and what we see this weekend, Kansas State can almost put a fork in Texas if they win that game. 2 games up, 3 games to go.
They'd be done.
And it would be tough. Baylor and Oklahoma, Baylor's still alive after what we saw Saturday night. They can hang around no matter what else happens around them if they win. Oklahoma State all of a sudden would fall, as you mentioned, to 3 losses if they don't take care of business in Lawrence, and maybe Kansas running out of gas too. Texas and Kansas State. If Texas wins, you're right. 4-2, K-State 4-2, Oklahoma State and Baylor could be 4-2, and you could have hellacious whatever's left. It could make it the biggest mess ever, and that 4-2 across the board could happen. And then again, it also could be where everyone's 2 games behind and only a couple of teams at the top.
Yeah, but that would just be after this weekend. Then there would be Baylor playing Texas, and those games.
Or TCU.
And Baylor's got to play TCU and Kansas State. So I mean, this weekend's just going to reposition or maybe redefine it. But maybe there's 4 teams rather than 5 teams that are still in the mix. But yeah, this thing's far from finished, basically. Although if TCU wins again this weekend and they get, over that next, hurdle, then sure, it's possible they could lose to Baylor or drop a game along the way, but they'd almost be able to just lose out if they win this weekend and still possibly find themselves the way that it's setting up. Certainly win the next couple weekends, and I think you're basically in, and that'd be a done deal with 2 more games to go, if I'm thinking of it correctly. So yeah, they're sitting pretty right now, and that's what happens when you're unbeaten and everybody else is sitting there beating up on each other, and it's straight up parity. 2 through, even TCU to an extent will probably be a part of it at some point. But yeah, when everybody behind you is, beating up on each other and you're still finding ways to win, you find yourself here in the final month with a nice little cushion.
Chris, K-State fan here. Bijan Robinson scares me if Daniel Green's unable to go at middle linebacker. B. Weinman, Oklahoma State is out of it as far as I'm concerned. That was the worst loss I've ever seen.
It's hard to imagine they'd get some momentum back,
Ben Moore, Kansas State is the only contender that I believe it could make it in the playoffs. They have a loss to Tulane as a top 25 team.
Not a bad loss.
But that's not a bad loss now that you look at it, as long as you don't look at the names of what we thought about programs. Coming up.
I know. The problem with them, though, is just the number of teams, even if they were 1 loss and it was only to Tulane, who's a top 25, maybe even a top 15, 20 team when all of that's, it all shakes out. But there's the number of SEC teams and, just alone those teams, Big Ten teams, has got like 5 of them that are in that top 15, 20. So that would be the hard part with 1 loss, but it'd be mightily impressive. There'd be a conversation.
It will be real difficult, though, for the committee, no matter Oklahoma State's wins against Baylor and Texas. And whatever else they do, it's going to be really hard to forget 48-0.
No, K-State I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
If they were to run the table, but no, they've got 2 losses overall. So no, they're not in it. No,
not in the conference playoff. No, TCU is the only. No, TCU is the only team with an opportunity if they keep that door open. All right, when we come back, Baylor's Mack Rhodes, his thoughts about the college football playoff being released tonight, but also, more importantly, his thoughts about the TV deal, even though it has not yet been officially announced, and what was the story behind the scenes. And that is next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, the people you can count on. I've counted on them multiple times. People have heard me do these live reads before. Then you've most definitely heard me talk about the couple of issues that I had a road rage incident that I was not the rage-filled participant. Somebody else was. They nicked my car trying to cut in front of me. Got to take care of that. There was another issue with construction signs all over the place. Ended up dinging my car just driving through debris and whatnot. Had to go get that checked out. Both times, It was easy peasy. Headed on over to Richard Carr and talked to Donnie and the good folks over there, and they were able to hook me up with great customer service and also with tremendous quality repairs, and made the whole process nice and easy. I can only imagine getting my car fixed there, what it must be like to go and buy your car over there. And right now, there are a lot of different options on Richard Carr's lot, from trucks and SUVs. You've got 2022 GMC Sierras, you've got Acadias, you've got Terrains, all of those models waiting for you to test drive today. You've also got Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs available as well, and inventory is going fast, so get on over to the dealership to check it out while you can. After all, it was a long wait to get all that inventory back on the dealership lots. Now that they have it, don't waste any time, because a bunch of others out there that have been in the market just like you are not likely to wait either. GMC Sierra, looking at that model in particular, just throwing it out there. How do you like best-in-class towing? How do you like a strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, a luxurious interior, massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, premium comfort? If you like all those things, you get that right now in a GMC Sierra. Check it out over at Richard Carr. And if those models that I listed off aren't what you're in the mood or the market for, the Exact Trucker SUV is not on the lot, well, get on their inbound vehicle list and you can cut in line for trucks that are in production but not quite in stock, or let them help you design the Exact Trucker SUV you want, and they will have GMC prioritize it for you. So head on over to the dealership. Richard Carr, 23 years in Central Texas. They built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment, and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Mac Rhodes, Director of Athletics at Baylor, 365 Sports. What a weekend it was. What a Sunday it was. What a game in Lubbock it was. And, Mac, thank you for your time with Craig and Paul, David Smoak as well. So let's start, if you don't mind, with Sunday, the release of at least the story in the Sports Business Journal. Not official yet from the Big 12 point of view, but your thoughts about the story, the details, and everything about a TV deal that's done.
Yeah, I think one, I think I can share that, that story is extremely accurate. And I think the facts, the numbers, the terms, so to speak, in the article are all accurate. And so it was, Sunday was an exciting day for, I think, the Big 12. And obviously, it was a day where I think many of us were fielding a bunch of phone calls, and it's a little bit hard to speak to because it hasn't been officially announced by obviously the conference and or our TV partners, but I don't think anybody would mind me saying that again, those facts are accurate, and we're excited about it. And it positions the Big 12, I think, really, really well. When we think about the future of college athletics, the future of Power 5, CFP, all of that, I think it provides stability, and obviously it provides an uptick in revenue when many thought, just as recent as 6 to 12 months ago, that we'd go backwards, and we're not. And so I think that's really exciting and healthy for the league moving forward.
Mac, how fortuitous was it that last year the two teams in the Big 12 championship game were not the two teams that were leaving, and currently the 4 teams who are in the best positions to be in the Big 12 championship game are not the 2 teams that are leaving when you're going in to negotiate with media partners about the future of your league and what you're worth?
Well, to use your word, very fortuitous. Absolutely. And I think, quite frankly, ESPN and Fox, I think they saw that and they feel it and they believe in it, that the strength of this conference is well beyond just the 2 institutions that are leaving. And when you think about moving forward, and there's still some uncertainty about what happens with the Pac-12, but at least right now it looks like we're going to be the only Power 5 conference that's going to be on both of those networks, or the family of networks. When you think about the Disney family, ABC and ESPN and ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, and then Fox Broadcast and FS1. There's not any other Power 5, and those are the 2 biggest formidable entities when you think about college athletics and especially college football and men's and women's basketball. And again, I think that speaks really well of the Big 12 conference. And while I'm at it, certainly Commissioner Yormark deserves a ton of credit. He's been relentless in working with the partners as our media consultant endeavor. They've been terrific. But I also want to make sure we give credit to former Commissioner Bowlesby, because gave us an opportunity, right? We reacted quickly, and when you think about the 21 football season, we could have gone through that entire season where the narrative would have been, we're damaged, we're hurt, we only have 8 teams, and instead the conversation was all about the 4 that we added, and it was the best 4 to add. And so, he deserves a lot of credit for that as well. And as a result of all of that, including, how the 8 are performing right now and how they performed last year because of all of that, we're on great footing, and we had we have 2 TV media partners that really believe in us.
Mac, I'm not sure if you could see the reaction, but how big do you think the smiles were in Provo and Cincinnati and Houston and what am I missing? Orlando, seeing those figures?
Yeah, knowing what the figures were or are in the American Athletic Conference, I would say that they all 4 had big smiles on their face. I know they did. So, it was a great day for them, and happy and excited for them. They are, when we start all of this, and particularly when the new TV contract begins, they're equal partners. And, if we're at, 12 when the 2 leave, it's going to be a great, 12 member conference. And I think we're all, we've all bought into that and believe in that and are excited about it.
Mac, did you entertain thoughts of having to run the athletic department with, say, half of the TV budget when everything went down, or did you have to focus on full steam ahead and let's make sure that doesn't happen before you really got there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. Yeah, very, very truthfully, we began to do a lot of budget cost modeling, and what could this look like? 15 million down a year, 7.5 million down a year, and then alongside parallel to that, really, doubling down on revenue generation. And, since we arrived, 6 years ago, we've been really blessed. I've got a great team, led by Jovan, on the external side. And when you think about revenue generation, whether that's Fair Foundation, ticket sales, multimedia rights, licensing, all of those things, we have broken every record by a wide margin. And so we had conversations, obviously strategic plans about, we need to continue to do that. And we're going to need to double down. And by the way, just because of this new or future, TV deal, we're still going to need to do that because, again, college athletics, just this crazy environment that we're in, it continues to be more expensive when we think about all the deregulation that has happened and is going to happen here in the future. But Paul, it's a great question, and yes, so we went through all of that, and at the same time, still full steam ahead, and we got to find a way to make this work.
All right, so a couple of questions on the details. Whether it's 31 or 32 million per team based on the TV deal, whatever happens there. Does that include Tier 3 rights, or is there even a Tier 3 rights going forward with the extension?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So it is inclusive of all. You know, most of the financials, right, if not all of it, is attributed to Tier 1. And do not ask me why there's no Tier 2. Because I don't know the answer to that. It's always been Tier 1 and Tier 3. But, you know, the Tier 3 stuff is all the stuff really that ends up, and not all of it, but this is a general statement, but primarily that's when we think about, you know, ESPN that's on ESPN Plus, ESPN Now, Big 12 Now, right? And I'm excited because there'll be a rebrand, refresh of that. When we think about that moving forward. So the digital space is, again, there are some nuances and some one-offs, but in general terms, right, the digital space, at least with us, has been reserved for, or has been attributed to Tier 3. So it's, again, we're thrilled with it. Everybody's the same. Nobody's treated differently. And I think it's a really, really good place to be for our conference.
All right. And now my other question is, if you take that figure and add what might be the college football playoff expansion, and add bowl games and the men's basketball tournament, is that number of somewhere near 50 to 55 million compared to the distribution of 42.6 million, is that in the ballpark too?
Yeah, I think, again, you know, you guys have asked nothing but great questions today. I can't say that every segment, but today I think I can. And, but yeah, I think, you know, the pause is we don't know yet what the new CFP is. And so, you know, if we can get this expansion from 4 to 12 for the last 2 years, which would be the 24 football season and 25 football season, right? You know, there's going to be more revenue, but I think that's one of the things they're working on right now is what does that revenue distribution model look like? Does it change from what it is currently? And then if it does change, you know, how does that impact revenue? And then when we think, you know, beyond that in the new CFP deal, you know, what will that look like? What will those revenues be? And again, what's the revenue distribution model? But to answer your question, we certainly don't think it's going backwards. It's only going to increase. And so when we think about what it is currently, when we think about what men's basketball units are currently, and by the way, you know, Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, Central Florida, they don't bring any basketball units with them when they come to our league. Those all stay with the American Athletic Conference. And even with all of that, our basketball units are extremely healthy because of the success of this conference in postseason. So it's I apologize for the long answer, but yes, I think, you know, we can be in that 50 to 55 million mark and continue to grow. And, you know, again, I think we're also focused on other revenue sources as well. So bright future, I think, for the Big 12.
Mac, on the Cincinnati, U of H, Brigham Young, and UCF note, when you mentioned basketball, you're talking about units the first year or the units as for how long?
Yeah, any units that they earned, you know, up until they officially become a member of our league, stay. And as you know, those units are rolling 6-year periods. So it's the current year plus 5 years back. So any of those units, right, that they had earned for the American Athletic Conference historically, stay there, and they don't transfer with them over to our conference. So we tried, but they said no.
Is there something built into the deal that if, in fact, you decide as a conference to bring in new schools, does the number go up automatically in a prorated fashion?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one, just quite frankly, I can't answer. I know the answer, but really, it's not for me to disclose. What I will say is I think we've got 2 TV partners that would be supportive of any type of expansion. I think both will not drive it, nor do they want to drive it. It would have to be, the conference driving it, and then it would be certainly a conversation in terms of, their thoughts, financially on those particular institutions, if indeed we try to expand.
All right, so is there something built into the deal of granted rights of the 6 years extension of anyone who signs it, they are then in a mode where they cannot leave your conference if, in fact, somebody else enticed them?
Yeah, so another great question. And so that's the next step, all of this, again, that story broke. It was leaked. It's accurate. But the next steps are, the signing of the grant of rights by the 12, and obviously, I don't think we'd be this far and openly talk about it like I am if we didn't feel really, really good about that. And so, that will be the next step for all of us to come together and sign that. And that's a step that's in progress logically, right? If you're thinking about it logically and next steps and knowing there has to be a grant of rights, that's the process that we're in right now.
Today, Houston had a journalist that mentioned that they're going to host Texas in 2023 as a part of their Big 12 schedule. Do you know yours yet, and are you just going to break that here on our show?
I may break it on your show. That I will certainly give that consideration. And again, I will be transparent, and I think right now we do have a pretty good idea of what that looks like. What we don't know is, the dates of games, the sequencing of them, any of that, and that's pending, and that's a lot of work. We've got some core scheduling principles that we live by. We've got some soft scheduling principles. We throw all of that into a computer. We also are looking at, just historically, competitiveness. That's part of the formula, if you will. And so trying to best determine, this fairness and how that works out. And so, just for an example, we added 4 schools, and, those trips are farther than what, all of our other trips, with the exception of West Virginia. So when you think about, going to Central Florida, Cincinnati, Provo, should you, if you've got 2 back-to-back road games like we've had, or like we're experiencing right now at Texas Tech and then at Oklahoma, should those be back-to-back, those long trips? Well, I think the conversation, or I know the conversation, they should not. And so all of that's factored in. And so that's the work in progress. And, I would hope around the champ game that we would have clarity on what the schedule looks like.
All right, I got one more question for you, if you don't mind, and I do want to at least ask you about Lubbock, because what an incredible win and atmosphere. You have Oklahoma this week, and I know that Oklahoma's down, but it's Oklahoma. The game is on ESPN+. Did that surprise you? And is it going to be even more of that in the future with the newest deal? Because that seems to be probably a disappointment for a lot of people that game is not on some sort of regular, let's say, an ESPN other than streaming or a Fox or somewhere else.
Yeah, so it didn't surprise me. And I certainly understand, some disappointment. It's intentional, right? It's, ESPN wanting to grow subscriptions for ESPN Plus. And then, I think to answer the last part of that question, there will still be, primarily, with the new TV deal, the number of games on either ABC, ESPN, ESPN2 will continue to be substantial, and then certainly Fox broadcasting rights, the I call it the big Fox, right, and then FS1, the other linear. So there will be still substantial most games, football on the linear platforms.
Lubbock, Texas, your thoughts if you want to look back on that win?
Yeah, I thought our team grew up. I mean, I thought that was, and obviously we won the game, and so it's easy for me to say that, but I thought, complementary football has been a phrase that we've used this season, and we haven't been able to really use it in a positive way. And I think, we were able to do that after the game against Texas Tech. I thought we were really good defensively, may have been our best defensive effort. The way we pressured, loved the way we played in the back end of the defense. And I think those guys starting to gain some confidence offensively. I thought our offensive line was as good as it's ever been. And I will say the same about our defensive line. I thought it played its best game. And then, we were good on special teams, and it was going to take that type of effort to win there. As it's amazing how many people talk about it, how tough it is to play in Lubbock at night. And that was a sold out crowd, and they were inducting Patrick Mahomes into the Ring of Honor, and they had their Hall of Fame inductees as well, and all of that. So the place was juiced and excited, and plus just quite frankly the drama surrounding former assistant, now their head coach, all of that. And man, our kids went in and they competed and they fought, and it was a really good, solid win for us. And so I was really excited for our team.
Did you get a chance to say hi to Joey?
I didn't, and that was not intentional. There was just a bunch of stuff going on after the game. I know that obviously Coach Aranda did, and some others. I did get an opportunity to say hello to some other former staff members, which was terrific. And look, I love all of them. I love Joey. Wish him the very, very best. Except for when they play Baylor, and they're when we play them, they are the enemy, and we're going to do everything we can to win and win the right way.
Mac, thank you for a lot of your time today. We appreciate it. I do want to say this, and this is not from anybody to say it just because you're a part of our segment. I've had people within the Big 12 and others that know how much of a role you played, among others in the ADs and presidents of the Big 12, but how much of a role you played back in the fall when Bob Bowlesby got off the canvas, and so did the conference, and how much of a role you played behind the scenes with the TV deal. And it's not something that should go unnoticed. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm just grateful that that Commissioner Yormark trusts me as well as some others. So appreciate y'all. Have a great day.
You too, Mac. Mac Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics, trying to get all the little details and bigger details hopefully answered. I know we have off the radar, but you guys wanted anything from what he said?
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the deal with Off the Radar. I can just sprinkle a couple things. We don't have to make it a full-blown because I know we got a couple of guests, so that's fine. And, like, if we want to wrap it around tomorrow or something, we can do that too.
Okay.
Because I basically got TV times. But I do think that a lot of traits in the NFL, like a lot going on in the NFL. But I do think it's of note and good to know that, I mean, Sports Business Journal, if they're reporting it, like, it was going to be accurate. I don't think anybody doubted that. But I think everybody had questions about the Tier 3 part. So Tier 3 is out the window. That's baked in. So that's going to be disappointing probably to some people who felt like.
But it was last time. I think it was last time. It's just we maybe didn't know that.
Yeah, but I just know how Twitter is. There will be some people. I've seen all the arguing about the Tier 3 part of it. So now that that's cleared up, that's a part of this deal. It's baked into it. So there's not going to be anything additional there. He very much left the door open on expansion. Very much left the door open on expansion, even going so far as to say that Fox and ESPN as partners won't be directly involved, but they're not like they're not saying like do not do that by any means. And what else was there, Paul? Do you have anything?
I thought it was interesting that he did say like if we are at 12.
Yeah.
So when he says that, that means that they have the constant strategy as a conference that. Because let's go back to the faux expansion talks of the, before times, when it was like, everybody send in your applications and then we will put them in a file.
You mean back when that was fake?
The faux expansion talks. So it was talked about kind of like in a, we'll certainly look at it, blah, blah, blah. And it never was. Now the conference is exploring things and talking openly in the reality of today. I think the Big 12 conference for too long was probably run by guys who were, it was great in the 60s. Man, what a great time that was, and I think that maybe it was. I don't know. I wasn't alive. But the fact is it's not, and it's never going to be again. So you have to deal in the now. And I think that this is a conference that's dealing in the now and the future, and the past is the past. And I think that's a very important step moving forward, because when you hear him say things like that, like, okay, we're positioned for the future, I don't think that the conference as a whole, until very recently, ever really thought about the future or the now. I mean, I really thought that they would just react to things as they happen. You're like, oh, who saw that coming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everyone but you.
Yeah, no, they're definitely, far more proactive than they've ever been before, it seems like. It seems like once Oklahoma and Texas left, Bowlesby got kind of a kick in the pants, and it's just lasted ever since then, basically. It's just that momentum is carried over into, Yormark now going on his, pitch tour in New York and doing things like the campus tours and just the build-up and the talk of the TV deal and everything. So good to know those are all the numbers that we can trust and rely on. Not, again, that anybody was doubting Sports Business Journal's report to begin with, but at least we got some more clarity. And, it does sound like there's more room for growth if they so choose that path. But, if they stand pat, they can be okay, at least in the near term, and feel good about where they are. They're not panicking and not worried about, like, the conference ceasing to exist. I mean, that's something that was a real actual anxiety, about a year ago, and that's not even really a question. Now, granted, as he mentioned, the sports landscape in college athletics is changing, the college athletics landscape is changing quickly. So, I mean, they're not in, flat waters right now. There's still a bunch of storms that are brewing all around them, particularly when it comes to NIL and the gap as far as earnings go and that type of deal. But they're in a much better spot than could have ever been imagined. So that's a good starting point, and then go from there and get as much as you can while you can.
And the interesting note about the units that were built up in the American Conference from basketball schools will not carry over in a 6-year cycle. That makes sense. That's fair. And secondly, the grant of rights, that's the next thing. They need to sign that. And then that's kind of like, again, you've built your cocoon, which is why you built it because that also, when Texas and Oklahoma, as they have every right to do, even though it was kind of shocking and you're like, what the hell? But you know what? That's why you have rules and legal stuff. You got to sign the grant of rights. That's also why they didn't leave last summer and why they're going to wait through 24 and 25 with whatever the number of the dollars of penalties that will come with it. There will still be a check to be written from both schools. Now, when we come back, a quick little hit on TV times with Craig and sports, including the World Series, and then our conversation with J.J. Joe. We have so much more lit up for the rest of this week, including focused in on that Georgia-Tennessee game with writers Robert Griffin III, Gabe Eichert, Phil Bennett, and others will be a part of what we do. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. Here are some names, and there's a list in front of me, and you've seen me when I've done this. In fact, I'm not going to look at the list. Padron, Cohiba, CAO, Ashton, Romeo and Julieta, Rocky Patel, which is one of my favorite brands, La Fontana. Perdomo is another one. And now I'll look at a couple just to throw it out there because I can't. La Fontana, I mentioned that. Punch, it's kind of a neat cigar. There are St. Louis Ray, Trader Jack's, Oliva, more and more. There's like 50 names, maybe 55 or 60 brands of cigars. They have Don's Humidor, Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne inside their 48-foot walk-in humidor. It is a fantastic place. They have CBD products for you if you want to take gummies in the evening to help you perhaps get a restful sleep and not toss and turn for an extra 45 minutes or 2 hours. And on top of that, they have accessories for the cigar smokers, humidors, cutters, torch lighters, and more. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. Tell Cheyenne, Ashley, and also Carol that I sent you in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
I'm going to tell you a tale of two companies founded 25 years ago. The first, Pickup Outfitters, started as a little shop on Lake Erie Drive by a local company selling the truck bumpers they were making in Waco. Then, 6 years ago, new ownership took up the cause of battling vehicle nudity, vowing to fight until there were no more naked trucks in Central Texas. And so far, they estimate they've outfitted more than 40,000 trucks at Pickup Outfitters. Now, the second company's story is not as impressive. They too started 25 years ago, but didn't have the vision of Pickup Outfitters, and to date, they have not outfitted one single naked truck in 25 years. So we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pickup Outfitters with money-saving specials and valuable prizes. The second company will support them too by giving away 25 one-month subscriptions to their online service called Netflix. Save and win the Pickup Outfitters 25th anniversary celebration through Thanksgiving. Details online at createacommotion.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, so welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Going to be a pretty quick segment as we're short on time, even though there's a lot more than I actually bargained for in terms of things to be able to talk about. Cutting the chase. Like the Auburn coaching odds, for example, and where Jeff Grimes is, which is pretty high, Baylor's current offensive coordinator, even higher than the odds of Matt Rule, who was the subject of rumors. Just last night I saw a little a report that he was apparently interested in the Auburn job. So, take that for what it's worth. There's going to be a lot of that just, I heard, bing. But Jeff Grimes, Baylor OC, definitely a name to keep an eye on, it looks like, and has been at Auburn before as an assistant coach. And as we pointed out earlier, Oklahoma's DC, Ted Roof, that's where they were assistants together, and now they'll be squaring off this weekend. So tonight, we've got the World Series, game number 3, Astros and Phillies. It's now in Philadelphia, and 7:03 start time for this one. That's Central Time. It'll be McCullers versus Suarez. 1-1, obviously. So World Series Game 3, folks. Any thoughts? Been a pretty spicy first couple games.
Yeah. Well, maybe help me out with this. Does the rain delay, the rain out, help whose pitching staff if this goes 5, 6, or 7 games?
I think it helps the Phillies a little bit more. I have a friend, Mike, who's a big Phillies fan. He said it was kind of a relief because I think most of Phillies fandom wanted Dan Wheeler to have another day of rest before he went. Allows him to push Syndergaard back a day. So there's some good stuff going on there for the Phillies. But I do think that I'm excited just for the fact that I will get to watch the majority of this tonight. It is Amanda's birthday, by the way, and my fiance. So we're going out to dinner and her family's here. But when we get done, we will get to watch most of the World Series, as opposed to Friday where we're doing a high school game, and Saturday where the majority of it is on during the Baylor game. So I was only kind of 5% in. Watching what was going on, and not until the very end either. So I'm happy that it's a night where I can watch it and watch two teams I have no positive emotions for.
Yeah, well, happy birthday, Amanda. It ought to be a good game. Been an interesting first couple of games. Normally I'd go a bit further in the college football TV ratings, but I'll just give you the top 5 for this week. At number 5, and this is kind of the cutoff of 2 million and up, right underneath it, number 5 overall watch broadcast this week, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. That was also the highest Big 12 watch contest at 3.38 million. So the top 5 was all 3 million or above. Got it? And this was number 5 at 3.38 million. Everything else fell below the 3 million mark. But number 4, Kentucky and Tennessee, 4.04 million viewers, good enough for 4th. Michigan State, Michigan, 5.58 million viewers, so big jump up there. Florida, Georgia, 5.62 million viewers, good enough to be the second most watched game. That was at 3:30 CBS window. And the number 1 most watched game last week, Ohio State, Penn State, 8.27 million for Buckeyes and Nittany Lions, and that's why Big Ten's getting big bucks, as you see Ohio State, Penn State with 8+ million, Illinois, Nebraska. I know Illinois is good, so that's not like typical Illinois, Nebraska, but still, that was the 6th most watched game. That had 2.5 million people tuned into that one. Illinois, Nebraska. But hey, big fan bases. That's what you get.
Despite how bad they've been for a long time, they still are a pretty damn good
base,
team.
yeah.
And Illinois, Chicago, and
they're good right now.
And they're good, yeah.
So yeah, Ohio State, Penn State, 8.27. The next closest was Florida, Georgia, 5.62 million viewers. But a bunch of healthy numbers there. There's a bunch of stuff that went on in the NFL. Jeff Wilson's going from the 49ers to the Dolphins. Bradley Chubb's now a member of the Dolphins in exchange for a 2023 first-rounder and also running back Chase Edmonds from Miami. Steelers, wide receiver Chase Claypool's now a member of the Bears. The Jags now have former Alabama wide receiver Calvin Ridley. What am I missing? Am I missing any major ones here?
Let's see. Chase Claypool's a big one. Roquan Smith was the other day.
Yes,
Kadarius Toney was last week. Robert Quinn was last week. Most of the big ones were
the most ever on the trade deadline, right?
The trade deadline. Yeah. I really liked what the Dolphins did. I mean, getting Bradley Chubb to a defense that already has some pretty good pass rushers on it. Getting Jeff Wilson in there, who is a San Francisco running back who knows that system. He and Raheem Mostert probably a better fit than Chase Edmonds, who goes back to the Broncos as part of to the Broncos as part of the Bradley Chubb deal. I like what the Steelers did for Chase Claypool, and a guy they weren't going to re-sign. They drafted him in the second round 3 years ago, and they're getting a second-round pick back for him. So that's pretty good value. I like the deal for Chicago if they can get something out of him and make him work in that offense. They need more playmakers, but that's to be seen. And this is a more minor deal, but I really like Nyheim Hines to the Bills. He's a player who's going to be, a role player in that, but I do think that he fits well in that kind of offense. And, of course, William Jackson from the...
I just saw that one.
Yeah, William Jackson to the Steelers. That's probably a good deal because he didn't want to be with the Commanders. They're not running a defense that works well for him. So the Steelers made out well today, and I really like T.J. Hawkinson to the Vikings.
I should have. I don't know why. I think I skipped over that one. Yeah. That's my fault. Yeah.
But he had a really nice year with Detroit. Had that monster game about 3 weeks ago.
But Kirk Cousins loves to throw to the tight end. When Irv Smith gets back from injury, that's a good 2 tight end matchup with 3 wide receivers in Jefferson, Thielen, and Osborne, Osborne that are really good, plus their running backs. The weakest part of that offense is Kirk Cousins. And I'm not knocking Kirk Cousins. We just know who he is. So, yeah, I think they've set up for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings to maybe run away with that division because the closest competition would be the Packers, who are total crap on offense and didn't do anything about it.
And, of course, Calvin Ridley is still suspended. So he closes out his career in Atlanta's, albeit short career in Atlanta, on the suspension list, and the Jags will have to wait to get help from him next season. But definitely of interest there. Wild day in the NFL. A lot to check out there if you're further interested in those trades. Did think I had one more note. No, I'll leave. Well, former Chiefs assistant Britt Reed, son of Andy Reid, sentenced to 3 years in prison for the DWI crash back in 2021 that injured a young girl. So sad news there, but some finality for the folks involved. So a little bit of legal matters. Don't always like having those, but there's a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. A little bit of a miniature one. We'll have, again, another one on Thursday. Coming up next, former Baylor quarterback and Baylor radio color analyst J.J. Joe John McClain, Hall of Fame writer. At the bottom of the hour, our top 5. We have a lot to get to. We will get that Mack Rhodes interview up as soon as we can on many of the details of what he basically discussed.
More Michigan State suspensions, too, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah, more than the 4, huh?
Yeah, they announced some more.
Yeah, that thing right there, that's a bad day for them.
Malcolm Jones, Justin White, Jacoby Windmon, Brandon Wright, all suspended as well. Just saw that come down a little while ago.
So 8 players, just and that's indefinite, I believe, as they continue to wait to see what happens. All right, this is 365 Sports. I would look at my piece of paper, but I spilled my Diet Coke on it earlier. The City of Woodway, discoverwoodway.com. They do a great job in that part. You know, we do a lot of football games in that area. Hewitt is to the east of Woodway. Discover Woodway has a spectacular place to host an event. Rehearsal dinners, any kind of business meetings, symposiums, weddings, you name it, they have what is the Carlene Bright Arboretum. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's the crown jewel of what you see when it comes to the City of Woodway, when it comes to what they do. And the wild nature trails around it, the landscaping, no matter what time of the year that is around it as well. The massive meditation grove, hikes and bike trails, gardens, so much to get to. And then again, the Arboretum can host. The Arboretum can host pretty much any event you could imagine that is for 20 people or for maybe up to almost 200 or 300 people. And they also allow you to bring in outside caterers, which is a big deal. The Veterans Breakfast is coming up next week, November the 10th, 9 until 11 o'clock to honor those who served for our great country. That, of course, is discoverwoodway.com. They're saying, please tell them you're coming. So, again, the seats are limited. It's the Veterans Breakfast at the Pavilion at the Arboretum, 9 to 11 on November the 10th. Veterans Breakfast Day, discoverwoodway.com.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you. TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today. Just off Highway 84 on Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
They might go for it, and they do. 4th down and 5. Chapin and Baylor. His throw for Baldwin has a first down across the 40 and then some. Oh, the speed! 70 yards! Sparks off his shoes for Monterey Baldwin.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
2nd down and 15. Joe Bonner. He's loose. He's got his second touchdown. No flags. 69 yards on that score. Tony Bowie missed the tackle. And somewhat shockingly, this game is tied.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback and also Baylor radio color analyst, joins us. He was in Lubbock. He saw firsthand 45-17, and he joins Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. J.J., they unleashed the dog in them in a lot of different ways. Your thoughts as you saw it unfold, could you sense this was about to happen?
No, I'll tell you, Smoke, before the game, they had so much going on. I did mention one thing, I think it was to Ricky. I think I said, hey, I hope they're distracted because they had a lot going on, man. They had homecoming. I saw Pat Mahomes. I actually went down on the field because a high school buddy of mine, Kenny Perry, coaches with Coach McGuire. So I went to go see him, and I saw Pat. I was like, they have a lot going on. And I'm thinking maybe you have some distraction here. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't about them. It was really, on Saturday, it was about us. We finally figured out at least to show a glimpse of what this team probably could be if Coach can get them playing at full tilt. But, man, no one anticipated that.
JJ, how can they – this is a young team, especially the guys that played the best on Saturday night that they had all season were the younger guys in that secondary. How do they bottle that up and carry it to Norman because they're going to have a very similar game plan against a pretty similar offense?
Well, I am encouraged. Number one, I'm encouraged because I think, this team has played 2 pretty decent road games in this season. Now, Iowa State, I don't care what nobody says, that's got to be the best 0-4 whatever team in conference in the country because they're not great, but they're not that bad. It's just the Big 12 is tough. So our guys have played a decent game on the road in Ames. Then we came back and played a really solid game in, here in Lubbock. Didn't really perform as well in Morgantown. So I'm hoping what this means is just maybe this team is growing up a little bit because I think maybe that Morgantown game, maybe we'll come back and look at the season and say,
hey, that 10 days or 9 days, whatever, after going to West Virginia, this team actually grew up because they actually came back, played well at Kansas, and then played well in Lubbock. And hopefully, we remember November, so hopefully it continues.
JJ, what were your impressions of the crowd as that was kind of unfolding? As you said, there was a lot going on, but it was just a 3-0 game after the first quarter, and Baylor just soaked up so much time of possession. It was by design, obviously, but outside of that third quarter kind of outburst, it felt like a pretty quiet night. What was it like actually being there in attendance?
Yeah, Craig, I mean, it was great, man, because I tell you, I've been there, and I told you guys, that's the loudest place I've played.
Mm-hmm.
But when the other team holds the ball for 40 minutes, the run game gets to chopping it up. The pass game is solid, not just over the top, but it's very effective. And that team is just manhandling it. It's just no way for the crowd to get into the game. So to have a sold out crowd, a blacked out crowd, that quiet, it's beauty to the team that's actually the opponent. It was beauty because you just know that they just aren't getting anything. So it was a great crowd. It was a great buzz. But the only thing they had to cheer for really was that run they made there, and I think it was the third, and Pat Mahomes at halftime. And that's about all Baylor gave.
It was after the turnover, too, right? It was, again, it was kind of like an unforced error that they were able to convert on it, and you could almost feel it. You're right. What were your thoughts, JJ, on how Tech utilized their quarterbacks? All of them were in it. It didn't seem like a couple of them were ready for the moment, and yet they rolled the dice.
Yeah, they're a little young at that spot. At least I think that young guy, help me with his name.
Baron Morton.
Yeah, Baron. I mean, he's talented. He's just raw. You can look at it. I saw him pregame. I watched him pregame, and he can spin it, and he can throw it about like Blake can, if not a little better. I mean, they're right there in the same class. You can tell he has some athleticism. I think he's a little bit bigger than Blake. So you can tell he's the future, but he's just not ready. He was not ready. And to be honest with you, the thing that needed to happen happened. I said, talk to me next week about our front. And if those guys are ready to take the next step, and they dominated a team in the pass rush category that they were supposed to dominate. And that impacted the game because all of a sudden I'm rushing 3 and rushing 4 and your guys running all over the place. So, hey, that really helped everything and really made it a long night for the quarterback. But the other two guys, I think, to be honest with you, I think, when the young guy takes over, I think those guys know what the writing is. And I don't, how they're preparing. I'm sure they're really great kids, but how they're preparing and how things are going mentally between their ears has to be a little challenging at this point.
JJ, I really liked what I saw from Hal Presley the other night going up and like the catches he made weren't just, obvious catches he should have made. He fought for some balls. He did that. And the Baylor offense was able to move and be threatening without Monterey Baldwin really for the first time this year. Do you think that's growth within the position group, or is that more the matchup they had with Texas Tech?
Tech actually had been playing decent defense. Their offense had been giving up pressures and sacks. They've given up some points, but their defense actually had been, I think they'd been yielding like 17 first downs a game. Actually played good in West Virginia, played, decent football. I think I forget what the other game before that. But they were playing decent football. But I really thought that they had nice size at corner. Both of the corners about 6'3", kind of lengthy guys. But Hal just developed. And that first catch Hal made along the sideline, that was, I don't care who you were. I mean, you could have been Deion Sanders. It'd probably been hard to, cover that one. But I think he's, sometimes the light comes on. And we've been expecting, we said it a few weeks ago, for this receiver group to come along. And I think Hal, you don't know who, but Hal has come along. It looks like he's growing up. Gavin is still trying to find a little consistency, but he had another really solid game. And he caught the ball at key moments. Ben Sims stepped up. Really hated to lose Drake Dabney. I think that's going to be I like Kelsey, but it's going to be a loss to lose Drake. But prayers to him. So I think Hal, man, I think he's just figured out, like, hey, here's an opportunity, and why not me? And he's trying to figure out how he can cement his spot in this lineup and help us win.
JJ, what'd you think of Richard Reese? Another, terrific. He did have the fumble, and that was a mistake, and that could have turned out way worse. But outside of that, not really much for him to complain about the true freshman.
Yeah, we got to give that cat another name, man. I'm telling you, that dude, man. I mean, he's the truth or something. Because I'm telling you, dude, this guy runs 31 times last week, and he seems to get a little stronger as the game goes on, and you just don't see that from 180-pound guys. But I wrote this, for Ashley, in 365. I said, man, like some dudes have been given the ball their whole life, and if they're not getting the ball, they're really not that happy, and they just know how to run it. They know how to protect themselves, and that doesn't mean they can't get hurt now, but it means they just know how to take a hit. They know how to get away from hits. They know how to absorb the game and be durable. And Richard Reese just comes across, and I hate to be saying this now because you never know, but he just seems to be one of those guys that since he was in junior high, coach gave him the ball, and he just made plays. And in high school, they gave it to him 700 times. He just ran it, made plays, got in the huddle. And in college, he's coming here again, different level, Big 12. It's not, high school football. And he's just doing what he's always done. And if we're honest, he's taking some hits. But very seldom do I see Richard Reese just get squared up by a linebacker or a safety and just get really shellacked. So he has that knack of kind of how I think avoid that really, really damaging hit over and over and over. So he's a special young man. I pray he stays healthy and keeps going.
Yeah, part of that knack is just being super fast to where you'd have to time it out right to hit him.
Yeah, I didn't have that gift. You're right, Paul.
There was that run where he tried to bounce it out against Oklahoma State early. I think the score was 9-3 Oklahoma State. He tried to around a 4th and short, and he could have walked in most games, but he didn't take that cut. And Oklahoma State has speed. I think he learned from that. Even on some of those plays around the goal line where he might have been able to bounce it out wide, I saw him be able to kind of like, as a great running back can do, is fit in a keyhole without taking that hit. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he, even when he gets in between, people say, "Well, man, he's not durable. He's gonna be in the pile, in the middle," and that's true. But a lot of the roughest hit, the biggest hit, sometimes comes when like you kind of break into space a little bit, and it doesn't mean you're on the outside, but you're kind of in the hole and you kind of see a little glimpse. And you kind of get away from people, and all of a sudden a linebacker or a safety or something, they square you up, and they get a real clean one on you. Richard gets some of those, but for the most part, like you said, he fits as though, or he'll play along the track of a runner, and then he'll find the hole or the crease, and he'll take it. And he just has vision that's God-given. It's some people, man, it's like a point guard in basketball. It's like the quarterback in football. There's runners who it's something about their feel for space and their feel for void, and they just kind of know how to do it. He just comes across as one of those kind of players.
JJ, how much do you think the secondary builds off 5 interceptions? I mean, that's obviously not going to happen week in and week out, but there was a pretty severe drought there overall. To have it all happen at once, to have it to a variety of different guys, young and old, I mean, what do you think that kickstarts anything potentially?
I don't know, Chris. It comes in bunches. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you have a really great year and you go 3 lean years or something crazy. But, it's good. I think it helps with confidence. I think it's really good for A.J. McCarty got a pick six. We had 5 guys. It's like everybody got an interception. But it's good just to get that reinforcement where coach can come back and say, see, if you do it the way I tell you to do it, if you play your technique, a quarterback will reward you. Now, a lot of that was due to pressure. But, still, I think that coaches can use that. So I'm hoping they build on it. But this week, OU is a different team with Dylan Gabriel. And they'll see a young man who won't throw it to him as much. Unless our guys up front make a decision that we're just not going to be blockable today. We're going to win. Somebody's going to win. And hopefully that's what comes to fruition.
I wish I would have asked Dave Aranda this, but I have a lot of time with him already. Does it matter if a quarterback is left-handed on coverage
the only thing is, usually a right-hand quarterback likes to work right. They like to work right deep, right middle. Not that they won't go left, especially out of shotgun now. A kid a lot of times can pass the ball and he's already open. But quarterbacks, usually right-handed. So I'm assuming left-handed. I've never been left-handed. It's opposite. They like to work a certain, sector of the field, maybe to the left a little bit. They're quicker with it. They don't have to flip and then make a throw. But I don't think from a defensive coverage, maybe you flip the strengths, right? So if they got a right-hand quarterback, a lot of my defensive pass coverages, depending on where the ball is, are going to be really catered to the left side of the defense. So maybe they flip it. That's a great question.
J.J. Joe, Baylor radio analyst and also former quarterback with us on 365 Sports. Can a win like that again, they could be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That could be who they are. That could be the exception. But could a win like that, does that give you the feeling that they could put together a run and be in the thick of it at the end of November to possibly play in Arlington, or is it too early to say that?
It's November. It's November, Smoke. And as we know, whichever way it goes, whether you lose at the end of the tail season, I remember all of my seasons by what happened at the end. I remember 92, although we were only 7-5 because we performed well in November and made a bowl game. I remember 91 because we sputtered at the end. We started out good. We went 6-0 and finished 8-4. We sputtered. In 90, we surged, even though we were just 6-4. We surged. So I think, every season, if we look back at the season we've seen here, you remember those last 4 or 5 games, and that really dictates how you feel about the season. So I think, personally, this team can build on it. I think something happened to this team in West Virginia, and I have to believe that this coaching staff, they would love the great question, really, Smoke, is what did you do the week after West Virginia? What was the message? What was the focus? What did you do? Because I'm hoping we look back and say something changed because they played much better at home against Kansas. Then they went on the road and dismantled a team that has played great at home all year. And then we'll see what happens in Oklahoma. If they win this week, I think they're sprinting.
Last thing about Texas Tech and Lubbock, and I just kind of talking to some people. Do you feel like for them it's an important game for both entering that game? We know that. But do you feel like that perhaps sometimes a team can think about an opponent, and not that Baylor is Tech's biggest rival. My God, we went through all that last week. We know how big Texas is or whatever, and their biggest thing this week is TCU. But can a team want something almost too much during a week and maybe hyperventilate and get tight the night of the actual game?
Exactly. And that's why I really thought, because really I watch pregame, because a lot of stuff is not, pregame is not an indicator of anything, because usually guys are going through a routine. They've done the whole season, and they've done years before. But if you watch pregame, generally there's different moments in pregame where you should see gas from a team. And it's not the whole time. You should see gas from a team at certain points. And Tech looked like we looked. What game was that? Oklahoma State. Tech looked like we looked against Oklahoma State in pregame. I was looking for moments. It's not the whole time, Smoke. It's like at certain points in time, you expected a team to really show you, like, oh, man, those dudes are amped today. They're ready. And it's not false amp. It's just certain periods of time. And Tech looked like we did when we played Oklahoma State in Waco. And I think they were gassed. And remember this, too, guys, is that I want to say this, as big as UT and OU are, because they're the land-grant colleges and they're great, the reigning Big 12 champion in this conference is Baylor. The team that's been to the Big 12 championship games 2 out of the last 3 years is Baylor. Baylor is the reigning champ. And, we got to start looking at them like that. Mm-hmm. And they got to start looking at themselves like that and play like that.
Thank you, as always, JJ. Great insight from where you were, what you do, what you've done. JJ Joe, Baylor Radio, and also former quarterback at Baylor. Thank you very much on 365 Sports. Coming up, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. He'll join us next on 365 Sports.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneeredboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at gallerysports.com and sportsradio610.com.
Hall of Famer that he is, John McClain. Boy, it's great to have him every week right here on Tuesdays around 5:30. John, thank you for your time. There's a lot to get to. NFL trade deadline, also Baylor football. But are you dressed up in your Larry Dierker throwback jersey for World Series?
No, I couldn't get in it if I tried, but I am
ready for the World Series. You know, it was easy for players to have a rain out. They're used to it. They're locked in on the game. But for fans, even though we knew it was a good chance it was going to get postponed, you get excited about it. I went to the first 2 games courtesy of Mattress Mac, my boss at GallerySports.com, and I was ready for that one. Now I've got a decision to make Thursday night. I should be at NRG Stadium writing about the Texans and the Phillies. And it dawned on me today, I write more columns on the Astros for GallerySports.com than the Texans. So I think what I'm going to do, one of the reasons I retired from the Houston Chronicle, I didn't want to travel anymore to all the games. Just got tired of it. So I watch games on TV, cover it off TV. I write a column or a report card, and then later do a 45-minute podcast. So I am going to stay home, and I'm going to watch the Astros, and then I'm going to stream the Texans on my laptop, and it'll be just the same as if I'm there. That game against the unbeaten Eagles, it'll be over in the second quarter, and I don't know how many Texans fans will be there. I feel sorry for those Eagle fans who bought tickets thinking, okay, we're going to be there on Thursday, and then if the Phillies don't sweep in Philadelphia, we can stay over and get tickets for the World Series. Now, I think there'll be a lot of Eagles fans at that game making a lot of noise. But if you look in the stands, you'll see them looking down because they're going to be looking at their cell phones. They're going to be watching the World Series while they're inside NRG Stadium watching the unbeaten Eagles.
John, what do you think about tonight's matchup?
I wrote a column on GallerySports.com about all the people in Philadelphia and the national media trying to act like the crowd at Citizens Bank Park is better than anybody. That's what they said in Seattle, where they went 21 years without the playoffs, how fired up and loud it is. Well, you know what? It was, and they got swept by the Astros. And then they say, well, the Phillies are unbeaten at home in the postseason. You know what? The Astros were too until the Phillies beat them 6-5 in the first game. So they have faced every kind of anger, vengeance, whatever you want to call it, in L.A., New York, Boston, and there's nothing Citizens Bank Park is going to do to have an effect on this game. Lance McCullers is pitching on the road for the third time, first time Seattle, second time Yankee Stadium, and so they become used to it. Usually the louder they boo Jose Altuve, the better he plays.
John, T.J. Hawkinson is now a Viking. Calvin Ridley is suspended, but a Jaguar. Bradley Chubb's a Dolphin. And more, Jeffrey Wilson's a Dolphin as well. A lot of activity today in the NFL. What were maybe a couple things that are most top of mind and stood out most to you?
People wonder why are so many trades made now. It's because he moved the deadline back. And by moving the deadline back, they had a record 10 trades on deadline day. And the reason they moved it back, and there are more deals, teams have a better idea. Are they going to go to the Super Bowl? Are they going to go to the playoffs? Are they going to have a high pick? So you see teams jockeying for position to make trades to get veterans they think can put them in the playoffs, win a division, or help them go to the Super Bowl, while the teams that don't think they're going to do that, they're thinking about the draft. And the team that everybody's most disappointed with was Green Bay not adding a receiver like Kadarius Toney, who went to Kansas City, or Chase Claypool went to Chicago. But that's the way the Packers operate. They're not deadline deal teams. And but it was interesting. The biggest name was Bradley Chubb. Last year of his contract, he hasn't played a full season since his rookie year of 18 because of injuries. And they gave up a lot for a guy that had trouble consistently staying healthy. But when he is healthy, he's very, very good. Miami has a great offense. To me, now they're trying to bolster their pass rush. I thought that was a really good deal for them. And thought it was a smart deal because they're trying to get to the Super Bowl.
Did the Texans try to trade Brandon Cooks?
They had teams calling. One of the problems was, most people don't know this, there's a deadline on Monday. If you don't make a trade by that deadline, any deal that is made after that the team that requires a player gets his whole contract. So I'm reading today and seeing on TV, well, the Texans are going to trade Brandon Cooks. Nobody wants to take his $18 million guaranteed contract next year, so the Texans are going to have to pay a chunk of that. No, that's not the case. Because of that rule, it's been in place and just people don't know about it. If they had traded Brandon Cooks, their best receiver, their second best receiver, Nico Collins is out with a groin injury, might miss several more games. The starting receivers for Davis Mills would have been Philip Dorsett and Chris Moore, two veteran journeymen who generally don't do much. And you're trying to hope Mills improves. 2 weeks ago, he played his best game and lost to the Raiders. Sunday, he played the second worst game of his career. He was awful. The offense was awful. The run defense was terrible. And it was one of the worst performances I've seen by a professional team in Houston since I left Waco for the Houston Chronicle in 1976.
John, what was going on with Brandon Cooks?
Brandon is the least controversial person I've ever covered. Really nice guy. And he wanted to be traded. Well, who wouldn't want to be traded out this team? Everybody would. He's never said anything remotely controversial. 3 minutes after the deadline, he put a tweet out. Everybody's talking about they overestimated him being a nice guy, and he's been covering for the lies, and we're wondering what that is. And so he'll have to talk to the media after the game Thursday night. Now, he shouldn't be complaining too much. He just signed a 2-year, $36 million contract that pays him $18 million guaranteed next year. If it was in their best interest, they would have traded him. If it's not, and it wasn't, he didn't get traded. Wait till off season and try again.
You mentioned what you do now with what you're doing with GallerySports.com and also Houston, the 610. Are you actually, you're supposed to be retired, and I know you came out of it. Are you actually working more now than you did before you retired?
I retired from the Houston Chronicle after 47 years for 3 reasons. Number one, I was doing 15 things a week, mostly columns, 5 columns and a bunch of other things. And some of them I just got tired of doing all the time. Also, I kept my pension. And after being there 47 years, it's pretty good. And I started taking Social Security. But I always knew I was going to still do all my radio shows. And then Mattress Mac called me and asked me if I'd be interested in working for him. And I said, I don't know anything about selling furniture. He said, well, I got an idea I think make us a lot of money. And I said, well, you already got a lot of money. He said, well, you can never have enough. So it was to start a sports website. And we did GallerySports.com, which there's no paywall. It's free, like he's in all his commercials down here. Buy $4,000 worth of furniture, and if Astros win the World Series, it's free. So they go out and buy over $10 million worth of furniture. So if the Astros win, he gets $75 million. He can pay all that furniture back. If the Astros lose and he's out $10 million on that bet, he's not out anything because people bought over $10 million in furniture.
Yeah, he's got it going. John McClain, your Baylor Bears going to Lubbock. It was kind of a dicey the week, and it was like kind of nervous energy because they hadn't really put together a full game. And my goodness, in Lubbock, they put one, and it was a woodshed in many ways, although it got a little bit dicey in the late third quarter. Your thoughts about what you saw from Baylor in Lubbock?
First of all, Richard Reese, when he runs, now he's a lot smaller, about 35 pounds than Walter Abercrombie was as a freshman. But Walter had great game at A&M and Rice, and we knew Walter was going to be special as a freshman. Well, we know this guy's going to be special. He already is. And the interceptions, the turnovers were what excited me the most. We went to the World Series, courtesy of Mattress Mac, 2 nights in a row. My good friend Lester Zinn, whom you know, took his tablet. We had a table overlooking the bullpen where we got waited on, and we watched Baylor and Tech on the tablet. We couldn't hear squat, of course, but we watched everything in that game. Then I came home where I taped it. I was so tired, but I stayed up and watched it again, and it was so much fun. And but the schedule is going to get tough at Texas, at Oklahoma. Do they play at Kansas State or get them in Waco?
That's a home game.
Lubbock, they play home this week on the road against Oklahoma, home against Kansas State, and then TCU, and then on the road against Texas.
Yeah, it's good. Those road games all come at Texas. I don't care how those teams are ranked or anything. Those are tough trips, as you guys know. But it's great. You go back, losing that game at BYU at overtime, double overtime, and then 42-40, I think it was at West Virginia. And I don't mind them losing to Oklahoma State. They should have lost that game. But, man, they should have one loss right now.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
There's John McClain, GallerySports.com, 610 Sports Radio. You talk about a memory who can recall things like Tim Brando, or you mentioned the late, great Dave Campbell.
Yeah, that's my point about the college football committee is it's great that they're watching things, but do they have Brando, McClain, like, recall? Not everybody does.
No.
And
dude, they're not they're watching stuff to an extent, but I promise you more of their information is coming from printouts than it is coming from watching at full games.
Lots of data.
I can tell you who's watching the most. The guys who are coaches on the committee, because they can digest all that information in a different way. But if you are an administrator on that committee, there's no way you're watching all that.
No, man, they're reading the stat sheets that was given to them with like this team's ranked 51st. Like I think, like they get all of the like you're this in defense and you're this in total offense and you're this in all these things, and I think that's basically what they digest for the most part. And I'm sure try to watch what they can where they can, but the majority of it comes from I think just probably reading stuff. And
I would just like to see the. In the new thing, they're going to have to pick 6 out of the 12 because the other 6 will be determined by winning conference titles and the rankings.
You have to sort them, though.
Yeah, you have to sort them. I would think that sorting them, here's where you sort them. You let the computer sort them, and then you kind of debate the ones who are close. If you have to say, okay, we're going to do this and that. And maybe you're going to let us see those computer rankings, but just let them do that for you and then do that. I don't know. So.
All right, coming up, Paul Catalina and his top 5. A lot of good stuff going on. You had evidence over the weekend, the Big 12 TV deal. It was reported by the Sports Business Journal. Macros all but confirmed everything and even gave us a little extra go with it. And he didn't quite get into a couple of things because he would rather not do that, but it all but answered questions there. This is 365 Sports.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel, luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 fits for Auburn now that Brian Harsin has left the crazy train on the plains. It is it's interesting to see where a lot of these, coaching searches will go. These are fits. These are not who they will hire or who they can hire or who will go there. These are people I think will fit there and can win there. Number 5, Deion Sanders. I think that this one, if he's going to make the jump into the SEC, this is a spot where I think he can win. I think he can hold off a lot of the noise for a little bit longer because he's Deion and he can kind of absorb it. He may not be the hero they deserve, but he might be the hero they need right now because he can kind of deal with all the noise because he is noise. And so, fighting fire with fire, and he can get people so excited that maybe they chill out for just a second because he is Deion Sanders. Now, I don't know how that will translate to the SEC, but so far what he's doing at Jackson State bears looking at if you are a Power 5 program, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I don't know if he wants to deal with that, but he seems to be, he used to be drama and still
he
can
still
be.
is probably.
Yeah, and he's.
Yeah, but what are we talking about? We're talking about different types of drama. What is he drama compared to a bunch of boosters that want their say? You think he's going to sit? I mean, he's going to have to take that eventually wherever he goes, whether he's at Alabama or Auburn or at JSU. Like, you still have to deal with boosters, but I mean, there are plenty of gigs out there for him to choose from. I mean, he doesn't have to be in a hurry to go just take the first, job that lines up. And clearly he wasn't. He's probably has some opportunities that we aren't aware of. I don't know, man. I think he could do well there, but I just don't know how much. I don't know how much I see him as like a great fit there for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I totally get why they would be interested. I totally get why he would be interested, but I just don't see this being his big launching point. And maybe I'm wrong. And wherever he goes, it's going to be fascinating. But
maybe he shouldn't.
Maybe he shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know.
So, I've heard a lot of people, early on we talked about this, about him and Georgia Tech because of the Atlanta connections. That's not where he needs to be. Georgia Tech's not his vibe. No, he does need to be in a place like in Auburn that, he can plug in all that amplification that he has and go, but it may not be specifically Auburn, but I do think that they should at least give him a look.
I think they should kick the tires. I just don't think it's a real fit.
Yeah, and I bet you he'll probably figure that out.
Yeah, for sure. He's smart.
Number 4, Bill Clark, retired because of back issues, but seems back in. Did a fantastic job rebuilding the UAB program out of it being canceled. He says he feels like he's healthy again. He's, from Alabama. He is in that. He probably knows how to, navigate that river a little bit better. And look, the guy's a good coach. And sometimes, while this might be kind of boring when it comes to it, Auburn might need a little bit of boring for a little while. Like, boring might be good.
Yeah, I think in terms of fits and what you're talking about, I think that would be ideal just on its surface. But I think what they're probably going for is, wanting to pack a bit more punch than that. I don't know that you get everybody he could probably do well in theory there, but is it going to make any type of a ripple really? Yeah. Is it going to make a big push in recruiting? Is that going to be one that gets the kids excited? I don't know about that part of it. So I would think that familiarity-wise and all that, he'd be a solid choice, but I just don't know if that's a big enough swing for them to take with this one right here.
Yeah. Number 3, Mark Stoops, and this is where you start kind of hunting your own in the SEC here. He's done a great job at Kentucky, but he did run up against the whole, there's a 800-pound gorilla in the room that is around orange ball, and a coach that had no problem saying it and then had to back off when he got called out. But John Calipari didn't wake up and change his mind that basketball should be paid attention to more than football. That didn't happen. Bruce Pearl would be an easy basketball coach to work with. I think that he's, while he's got a big personality, he's not braggadocious enough to say that like John Calipari would. And maybe you get to the point where you think this is what I can do at Kentucky. I don't think that's in the Stoops family DNA. I think they're long haulers. I think that's clear with what Bob did at Oklahoma. But, it wouldn't surprise me to see them go ask about a guy who is, and here's the thing, while he's a bigger name and a bigger splash than Bill Clark, still kind of boring, which is what they need. He's very straightforward. Bob Stoops, Mark Stoops, the Stoops family, they're straightforward. That's what Auburn needs, is somebody who is this way.
Like Bill Clark especially, and now even Mark Stoops as well. This reminds me of when Texas has a job come open, you go like, this is who they should talk to versus who they actually will talk to. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's these would all be super solid, just football head coaching hires, but all the other stuff from recruiting and fundraising and NIL and all that jet transfer, it's almost feel you got to have a little something to you. Mark Stoops, he's clearly done really well at Kentucky, and it's so weird how incestuous the SEC can be as far as the coaching movement. Sometimes it feels like, but he's proven himself at a place where not a lot of people have been able to prove themselves, and has done a great job there. So I think if Auburn were to go that route, I don't know that it would make the biggest splash per se. And maybe that's not ultimately what they're wanting, is the biggest splash. But you couldn't say this is a bad hire, clearly, because of what he's done there with Kentucky. So. Yeah.
Incest in the states of Kentucky, Alabama, and Mississippi, you say?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd avoid that. The chat, that's not me.
Some of the chat, by the way, Roger Dodger, Auburn has little man syndrome.
Yeah.
Sir blah, 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 Clark definitely knows the state of Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Roger Dodger, Auburn should be happy with 7 to 9 wins, as always, a year as usual. Auburn isn't little man, having won multiple national championships. Little brother, yes, but not little man.
Yeah, I think that's a good correction there. Number 2, now we're going to get wild. Lane Kiffin. This is a guy, look, if you want somebody to deal with the circus, get a ringmaster. And that's what Lane Kiffin certainly is. And he's a guy who can, I'm starting to respect the game a little bit with him a little bit more and more. I don't know if I'll ever fully like him, but I do like that he is not going to be anybody's punching bag, and that's also kind of what they need at Auburn, that he can kind of roll with all that stuff. I'm sure he's, gets up in the morning and looks at that golf ball that chucked at him at Tennessee last year and gets motivated. That's what Lane Kiffin is. So I think that could work out for them. But again, this is the SEC having to go to Ole Miss and money whip a guy out of there, and they're already spending $41 million on the last 2 coaches.
Well, you're going to have to – that's the choice you made. You made the decision to spend tens of millions of dollars just to be in a position to go hire another guy for tens of millions of dollars. And if you want Lane Kiffin, then you're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars. He checks a lot of boxes, if not all of them. He's doing, obviously a really great job at Ole Miss. They're highly relevant, has switched up his styles, has gone to, more of a run look this year than what we saw from them previously, and having some success doing that. He's a great football coach. I mean, he is a really smart dude. I've grown, more in terms of liking him the last few years as he's, I think, gotten older and more mature, and he's still kind of quirky in his own way, but that's what makes him Lane Kiffin. And so, yeah, he's always going to be somewhat level of controversial, I think, for college football fans, just because of, like, his past. I think we all remember him for, like, those reasons, but I think we've all seen how far he's come and what a great job he's done and what a great coach he is. And, yeah, if he decided to make that move, I think that'd be a huge hire for Auburn.
Yeah. On the chat room, on by the way, the multiple national titles, 1957 and 2010 is not winning natties a lot. There were a couple of years, what was it, 93 or 90 whatever, and they had that 2004 team that had the great run.
Yeah,
but they didn't win the actual national title. They do have 3 Heisman Trophy winners, though, with Pat Sullivan, Bo Jackson, and, of course, Cam Newton.
Did they not split a title? In the early I guess I'm thinking of something else then. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Number one, and this guy, I just don't think it's going to happen. I agree with Tim Brando. But number one, Hugh Freeze. This is a dude who can win in the SEC. He proved he can win in the SEC. He's at Liberty right now, and winning at Liberty. He can coach ball, but you are getting a very, I'll say again, to put it mildly, because I'm trying to be professional here, but dichotomous person here. And to me, he's a little bit in the Urban Meyer mode. And I don't think that the SEC, in particular, maybe even Greg Sankey, is nuts about having Hugh Freeze back in his league.
Let's not act like all their coaches are like
No. But
I know.
We know about Hugh Freeze, and that's what would make me feel uncomfortable.
How long has it been since he got himself sideways?
Well, it's been 4 or 5 years. Okay. So, and I don't know. He went to a place that was run by some sideways people. I don't know.
What are you talking about, Liberty?
Liberty, the Falwells, and it just, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable if I'm anyone throwing my full support behind Hugh Freeze.
Auburn wants to win freaking football games.
But waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I want to watch the college football playoff rankings here, and they're dropping right now.
Okay,
Hugh Freeze, he's a weirdo to me. Like, he's a great football coach. I don't like his personality. I don't like his fake preacher stuff. I wouldn't be happy. I mean, like, from a full wins, losses, sure. All the rest of it, I could leave it. But I'm not an Auburn fan, so, if that's what they want, then maybe that's what they get.
All right, thank you. Our retired stockbroker, S. Michael DeHart, Cougar Tracks, and Bo Stacker, a bunch of super chat money. Thank you very much. A retired stockbroker put up there. Hey, match what I did. Some of you $2, some of you $10. Thank you all. Thanks a lot to Garrett Ross, Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway. Yeah, the college football rankings are about to drop, if not already. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Thank you and all of our great sponsors. Hell of a show lined up for tomorrow. Good night, 365 Sports.